You just barely taking care of what you're stressing yourself out trying to get.
Yeah.
We're going live, guys.
All right, now we can use the flavorful words.
We're all alive. Hey, we're alive.
Oh, are we? Okay. Yeah. Well, I just assaulted the chief. Oh, speaking of, we're live. I'll keep my mouth shut until lunch because that could remind me to tell you another story that I heard yesterday from a different city. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes. Yeah. Monty and Deanna. Okay. Monty. Minutes here. Let's see what they have to say. Monty's probably going, oh shit. What's that? No. Someone message her.
How old are your kids now? I remember when they were this high. Are they going to college? Or are they in Woodland? Or what are they doing?
They both at home. Bethany just graduated and she's going to get her teaching English as a language so she can go abroad. Oh, just sure because they're just teaching English as a second language.
Does she prefer what grade she wants to teach or anything? Or
Just to teach, yeah, just
kindergarten, 7th grade. I know some people like to, I want to stay with high school, I want
Yeah.
to stay with, little bit students or what.
I have a couple friends that do that, teach English abroad. One of them just came back from after being in Japan for the last 7 years.
There's a cross, there's a phone cross-reference.
I just don't know about yeah.
They do pretty good at
We're
that.
gonna have to have a foreign grant while we got
It depends on
one.
the company you contract
Oh, is it?
with. She just had a horrible experience.
Oh, really?
With she loved the kids, but the bosses were just,
Let me check the parking lot and just see before we
she
get
has chronic
started.
illness,
See if she's coming.
and they just aren't very,
Understanding.
yeah. So she just came back stateside.
Let's get started. It's 9 o'clock. I'll punish everyone for being on time. Okay. Just kidding, Deanna, if you're watching the video later.
And I'm just saying that if I beat Deanna, she's late.
No, you're right. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you for being here this morning. If I can get everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, time is now 9:01. Will you please take roll?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Holland? Councilmember Rowland?
Here.
Councilmember Byrd?
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith?
All right. I'm not sure about Councilmember Holland and Smith, but if they show up, that's great. We'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to see everyone's faces. Today's the first day with no mask mandate, so make sure that that's on recording. In the event of emergency this morning, we have a few exits right there. We have another door over here. If there's an earthquake, dive underneath your table. If you feel like you're having a medical emergency, we'll call 911. Bathrooms, everybody knows what those are. We've got coffee and everything out there. There's some snacks in case you need a little something to get you going. And lunch will be coming around 11:45-ish. So one of our executive team members will be grabbing that, and there's Mrs. Holland now. You can go and mark her down. Good morning, sunshine.
Do I have an assigned seat?
Nope.
No.
Just wherever you can find one. Yeah.
morning.
That's fine. But we've got a couple here. Expectations of today. Please be professional with one another. Please be courtesy, or use courtesy towards everyone. Everyone here has a voice. This is a conversation day. There will be no vote or action taken. This is a workshop. So please make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to give their opinions and their thoughts, and be respectful of those even if they differ from your own. Throughout the day, we're going to start with presentations from the executive team to give you an understanding of where we are right now, what's been budgeted for the year, and we'll let them, I don't want to take away their thunder, but we'll get a report from the police department, community development, public works, and the finance department. Are you giving presentation? Yes, that's it. The treasurer's office. We'll have, if you need a break, feel free to take one. We'll try to take some periodically through about every hour or so. We'll take a 5-minute break or so. Feel free to use the restroom or get whatever you need at any point that you need it. And so we'll start with those, and then Mr. Boyce will have a small presentation, then I'll have a small presentation or a discussion with you. And then we will turn it over to you for thoughts of what you've heard today and policy decisions going forward that you'd like us to start working on, hopefully, if it's any different than what we're already doing. Again, there's no votes today. We're just looking for consensus from the group on how to move forward, similar to a council meeting workshop. And it's an open discussion. And with that, any questions before we get started? Okay, goal is 4 o'clock. Yes.
I want to put a 10-minute time up on PowerPoint.
Each department head has, each executive team member has been given 30 minutes. Some may take more, they may defer their time. My understanding is the chief said that he didn't have 30 minutes, so the other 2 may gobble up that time.
No, this ain't right here.
Gina doesn't usually go very long. Gina doesn't go very long, it's the other 2 you need to worry about.
Can we have an intermission
You cut into my
between the
115
middle of them?
Yeah. So as we've got a timeline, this is supposed to go till lunch, the presentations of our executive team, but if not, then we'll just continue on with the agenda. So the goal is 4 o'clock today, but Carl said 1:15,
yeah.
So we'll see where we go. So if we can get a lot of work done today and move forward.
He's like, 4?
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
All right.
I'm just thinking Tom and him, they're going to be like, where are you at?
Oh. One of the other things, one of the other expectations for today too as well is let's try to stay on topic so we can get through what we need to get through and try not to get off into the weeds with sidebar conversations and off-topic conversations. Carl.
Those are my favorite.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to who's going first.
So I'll go first.
Okay. We have an open seat right up here for you.
Yeah.
Please.
Do I have to sit there?
Yeah, come join the team.
I'm good. So what I'll start with is some of the highlights from last year. Just so you know, your police officers saved 5 lives last year. And it's usually, well, most of them, 4 of them were use of Narcan to save somebody who overdosed. And then 1 was a person in a mental crisis who ran out on the freeway with a child in their arms, and one of your officers saved their lives. Some of the big cases that we had, of course, you guys know, are very familiar with the collision that occurred where the car went into the lake and it was a fatal collision, but one of your officers made a gallant effort in an attempt to save that individual's life, not knowing whether that individual was dead at the time of the collision or not. But some heroic actions by your police officers, and we've got some brand new officers who are going to continue that tradition for the city of Woodland. Let's see. And as you guys are fully aware of the legislative challenges that we had last year, some of those things forced us to make policing look a little bit different in the city of Woodland. But during that time, we had some pretty good opportunities to improve processes and maybe remind all of us why we got into the business. And it's been difficult for your police officers to come to work and remain high in morale while they're doing that. But I think we've persevered and lived up to the expectations of the citizens of Woodland. So that's all the stuff that happened last year. This next portion of the discussion is going to be for things that we're currently doing and looking to do in the future. Council is always is very aware of the Sallyport project pending, and that will probably start here in the next few weeks, coordinating with vendors and maybe getting them out to the property to take a look at exactly what we can and can't do with the ideas that we have for what the Sallyport will look like. The biggest thing for us is our personnel update. This past week we had an officer resign, leaving us 2 vacancies now. The priority for this year is going to be to fill that roster. I'd like to have a full roster because I haven't had one since I've been here. And we do have a couple of entry-level officers that we're looking at. As you're aware, Officer Warner is going through the academy right now. Officer Hollingsworth began his Woodland career 2 weeks ago, and he is currently embedded in the field training officer program, and currently riding with Sergeant Keller. During this time, we've identified, we're in a little bit of a transition because now we have the lieutenant position, we have the administrative sergeant position, and those duties are currently being identified and solidified. So the challenge there is making sure that we're not violating the contract with the Officers Association to take work away from them. The good part is we've got a couple of new projects that we can delegate to the lieutenant for her overseeing those programs. One is the body cams, and I did bring some show and tell items here. So these are the body cams that council has authorized us to purchase. The body cams will be probably deployed. We have a meeting with Motorola on the 14th and 15th of April, and it'll probably be shortly after that, or maybe the end of April or the beginning of May when these are deployed. Very user-friendly, pretty simple, but each officer is required to take a half-hour training with these, showing them how to operate them and how they can categorize events and those type of things. So it's pretty simple. But I'll pass that around. You can take a look at that. These are the this is the base for that, where it attaches, and it's pretty easy. It attaches to the uniform, plate in the back, this in the front, and very high magnets, so when you're messing with this, watch your fingers. I already got a blood blister from it. So that's pretty good. So when you take that off, you've got to have these so that you can get your fingers in there to open it up. But once it's on, and it clicks in there pretty easily.
Are those antennas that are sticking up there?
No, those are just to release the magnet enough for you to separate it.
Oh, get it off.
Yeah, I got one right here. That happened when I was messing around with it. So we're still in the process of identifying the lieutenant's duties. We're facing a little bit of a financial challenge because we have to order office equipment for duty equipment, and some other needs, and of course another vehicle. And with the lieutenant position, we have opportunities now to kind of diversify our patrol ranks and maybe use that administrative sergeant position as a detective sergeant position, which lends us to some retention opportunities to hold on to officers and give them its incentive to stay with the department as they can rotate through that detective and detective sergeant position. So that'll be part of our silver lining. We also have an opportunity, and it's really just in talks right now. The next couple of weeks will provide us with a little bit more, but we have an opportunity to get involved in a multi-agency squad or task force or something in the future, and that's something that we're going to try to take part in. And of course, we have a challenge with office space, as you guys are aware. Council's aware that we're using the conference room for the lieutenant's office currently. We're waiting. Carla's done a great job in keeping up with getting office furniture and that type of stuff, and that the administrative sergeant, soon to be detective sergeant, will probably move into the detective's office so that they can share that. And then they'll have more opportunities to work in the same office and collaboratively and probably proactively in the community. So unless we have other opportunities, and I'm hoping those other opportunities appear, but the detective will stay here. The detective sergeant could potentially work countywide. So we're working on that. We've got some Spillman stuff coming up. Spillman's being upgraded, giving us more modules to use, and that training's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And then a little bit further down the road, the comm center will be completed, and a new CAD system will be incorporated. So that should be able to, with the Spillman module of computer-aided dispatch and the report management system, will be partnered and potentially save officers time and really streamline things a little bit. So we're looking forward to that. You saw the body-worn cameras. I gave you a kind of a potential deployment date. We've been working on policy updates, and the lieutenant has identified quite a few policies that need updating, and she's all over it. So she's already pulling her weight. In the year 2022, we and Carla and I have been talking about this for quite some time now. During the year 2022, the Woodland Police Department is going to develop a strategic plan. We're not sure whether it's going to look like a 3-year strategic plan or a 5-year strategic plan, but the longer the better. So we're going to shoot for that 5-year plan. And in doing all the policy updates and making sure we have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, we're going to pursue WASPIC accreditation in the year 2023. So those are our priorities, because it lends us a little bit more credibility, and we embrace the open and transparent communications, open and transparent policies and procedures within the police department, so that anybody can ask and they're going to receive the information that they desire.
Chief, can I stop right there? Can you explain what WASPIC accreditation is and kind of the important?
So there's a couple of different kinds of accreditation that we could do. The easiest one for us is in-state. WASPIC is the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. And they go around and help agencies with attaining accreditation. And so that lends consistency throughout the state, where departments can't just make up their own rules. Everybody's got to be playing on the same page. So that consistency is what we're all looking for.
It's to get everyone the best practices.
Exactly. And right now, we're doing okay with best practices because the policy contractor that we have, Lexipol, sends us continual updates. And each agency can tweak those to fit their agency size or other processes and procedures that we have in place. So we can, but it doesn't deviate from the overall idea of those policies. And WASPIC puts us in a position where you're held, the agency itself, not just the individuals, but the agency itself is held accountable to maintain that consistency and all the certifications required to have that accreditation. So we're looking forward to doing that. And that's a goal of mine by 2023. We're going to continue to identify training needs. The cool part about it is the majority of the face of our department has changed. We have a whole bunch of new bodies, and that's really cool because we're able to provide those officers with, of course, our core training, the required training that each one of us have, but the continuing education. And we're going to, the sergeants have their meetings with the officers monthly, whether it be formal or informal, so they can kind of give them the temperature of how things are going. I incorporated that a few years ago. So each sergeant gets with the people in their charge and has a conversation with them, say, hey, you're doing this well, we can work harder on this. Hey, by the way, what kind of training do you want? What kind of training do you want outside of our core training to identify career movement, career advancement, and maybe give them the opportunity to say, hey, you know what, I think this would be cool, and this is how it will benefit our department. And of course, that's a big factor, how that's going to benefit our department and the city of Woodland. And it gives our officers ownership in the city, and it gives those officers ownership in the department. We also take the time to maybe identify some personal goals. Do they want to stay where they're living at? Do they want to be involved in the community outside of work? Outside of when we're not wearing our day shift costumes? Do we want to be involved? And I do encourage them, and we've had quite a few. As a matter of fact, I sent out an email the other day where the library is looking for fundraisers stuff. And I'm working closely with Ms. Lovejoy to try to get that to happen for her. And so those are the things that we have. Of course, I bought some, in case somebody has questions about some of the House bills and the laws that were passed yesterday at the end of the session. The good part about that is there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Some of those things, some of the things that really restricted us, opened us up just a little bit more so that we can actually properly do our job. So police work is evolving, and of course we all know that it's an ever-changing landscape, but at the same time, many of all of your police officers are chameleons. We have to adapt to the environment. And the last year the legislature they put a little bit of restrictions on our environment. But we were still able to do the police work and the public safety expectations of the city of Woodland and the citizens. So we're gonna adapt and overcome, and still be able to provide that quality public service that you guys expect and you deserve. So that's it. That's all I got.
Questions for the chief?
Can I have a copy of that paper?
Which paper?
The one you
Legislative.
legislative stuff?
Yeah, I could get that. I'll get that to you. I'll throw an email at you.
Okay.
What officer is that?
Officer Kearney.
Oh no.
Moving on to bigger, better things. He was less than a year here. Yeah.
He was really sweet.
Yeah, good dude, and we're going to help him land on his feet. So
The body cams, are they just video on or are they video and audio?
video and audio. So what you'll see is if you have an officer that shows up to a scene, they're going to say, hey, you're being recorded. And you say, well, what are you recording? I'm recording our conversation, and I'm recording the incident and stuff. Yeah. And so where'd the camera go? Okay. We're going to attempt, and you can see this is kind of configured a little bit where the base has a little bit of a notch in it, where you can put it over your carrier, maybe. So this has a little bit of a notch in it, and it'll go in that zipper. So if I was to put it on here, it'll fit right here, and my buttons won't hit. So we're going to try to put them here. It may not allow that, so we'll have to maybe here or here opposite the radio, the portable, or whatever. But this has a pretty good fisheye lens, and if you want to really look at it and see the function of it itself, you can Google the V300 from Motorola or WatchGuard, and that's the model that council has given us.
So to get rid of that recording, you got to shoot them there.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
It's not going to protect them.
No, it's not bulletproof.
So is the data stored on the device, or does it?
No, it's on the cloud.
Okay.
It's on the cloud, and we have unlimited storage, but the challenge is going to be the redaction portion of it, and I'm sure Travis is going to touch a little bit on public disclosure stuff that we have. We've gone through. The lieutenant and I have gone through the disclosure thing. I think, Carla, did you have an opportunity to look at it yet? She and Donnie have an opportunity to look at the AG's office, put out a thing on body cams. It focuses more on Seattle, but some of those concepts are good for us too. So it's going to be, the disclosure portion is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it comes with redaction software, so we'll have that. And then we'll just have to develop a retention schedule, most likely following the state retention schedule.
Are any of the other cops running around? Like the Lava and
Everybody got these, and we're just waiting to deploy them.
Has anybody else deployed their ship?
I think Longview is close,
Okay.
but they haven't.
Okay.
No. But county, state, and I think Longview has in-car videos. So this right here gives us an opportunity to build for our future. And our future could be in-car video systems that talk to this. And it'll give you two different angles. You'd have the overall view of the in-car video, and then the close-up view from the body cam where the officer's making contact with an individual. So it gives us an opportunity, and I think in the long run, this will give us an opportunity to avoid receiving complaints on officers, and this could exonerate those officers or make those complaints unfounded. So,
I think people behave differently too when they're in front of a camera.
Oh, yeah, when another being different, oh, yeah, right, a whole new like that.
I think it's going to change. I mean, obviously the legislature has kind of pushed us into that unfunded mandate, by the way, but they've pushed us into this situation where the law indicates a minimum of an audio recording for a custodial interrogation, somebody in custody that we're questioning. Well, I can't really put that pressure on an officer to say, hey, wait a second, I can't talk to you. I got to get my recorder in the heat of the moment. This gives us kind of a no-brainer where you're on your way to an event, hit the big black button, and you're cooking. And then if there's some privacy expectations, that officer can justify why the camera was shut off and be able to articulate that in a report. We've got a policy developed and ready to deploy when these are deployed. And it gives us pretty clear, I think, and obviously we're going to have a sit down with the Officers Association and our administrative staff so that they can see, and if there are things that we need to add or things that we need to change to conform with what everybody else is doing, we'll be okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple questions. So can that just record audio? If like the video's compromised or whatever, can they turn off just video and just still have it record?
Yes.
They can?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then a question also, like when I worked at the call center, sometimes our calls, we'd have to listen to them back for feedback and everything. Would their body cam footage kind of be used to help, like, this is what you did in the moment, like this was great kind of thing, to help give like feedback on actual, like what they're doing?
No.
No? Okay.
No. Because I can't use, this won't be used unless there's formal allegations of misconduct by an
Okay.
officer. This will not be used to proactively look at an officer's daily activity.
Okay. I was just curious.
Otherwise, we're setting everybody up for failure.
Okay.
Right.
And this is exactly, and this is a trust item. I trust all of your police officers to wear these and be professional.
Oh, it wasn't
Unless-
a question of if they weren't.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Okay.
kind of filling everybody in that
Okay.
these won't be used for discipline unless there's a formal allegation.
Okay.
Yeah. But if an officer says, "Hey, Sarge, would you take a look at this and let me know if there's anything that I can fix?" But that has to be up to the officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it can be if they request it, if they just want
Can-
feedback.
Yeah, we're not going to
Okay.
go proactive looking for that.
Okay.
Yeah. What else? So it's probably going to take a couple of weeks to get the formal one. These are just notes. So the formal final report from WASPIC for the legislative changes won't be done for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So, but I can either present those to the Public Safety Committee or present those to council. What else? See, I didn't go 30 minutes.
It's
I've got
9:30.
questions. Oh,
You've only been 19 minutes. You're only 19 minutes in. Got some questions. The policy updates that have been worked on that you've brought up, are those internal policies or are those policies that are being set by the state that have to be updated?
yes.
Okay, so both. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the final policy from state mandates are not going to be up for quite a while.
Okay.
We're just tweaking a couple of things. One specifically for our officer-involved shootings. It's an older policy. The lieutenant identified some deficiencies in that were inconsistent with the independent investigation team
okay.
protocols. So because we have, as you guys are fully aware, we have 2 of those we have to deal with because we're in 2 counties. So we have the Clark County one, we have the Lower Columbia one, and we've identified some inconsistencies in those, and we're fixing those.
Okay. And then what about your public disclosure requests before cameras? How is that going? You guys handle that internally, right?
Yes,
Goes
we
through-
all the ones that come through the PD are handled by the PD unless they're a whole lot bigger. Specifically, and Carla's been fantastic with all of our disclosure requests and delegating, somebody to find this item or letting me know, hey, we got this and we need this. And so, yeah.
How is that going to change with the body cameras?
Well, we're identifying the lieutenant as the body cam program manager for that, and she is now, did she complete it, Travis?
Yes, she did.
I think she completed all of the disclosure,
Oh,
public
okay.
disclosure officer requirements. So she'll be the go-to person here for the body cam stuff. And once Carla and Donnie are on board with the training, just the idea of what that
Yeah.
looks like, it'll all be handled in-house.
Do you think we're going to need to, well, I guess you wouldn't know until they've been deployed.
Yeah, we're
So-
going to have to wait a little while
Okay.
to see,
So
because
that-
I know that we
yeah.
talked about an FTE or maybe, just having somebody fully integrated into that position. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So, we had a conversation, was it during this last budget cycle, that we were talking about public disclosure
Yeah, I think it
and
was
sharing?
like November or
We,
October.
I don't think we actually had it during council, it was during just our executive team. We're trying to figure out with the deployment of the body cams, if we were gonna need somebody full-time or half-time over at the PD, and Travis will talk about public disclosure requests as well, and the amount of requests that are coming, how long it takes, and if we need to hire somebody just to do PDR requests to share between the PD and City Hall. So I guess we don't know where we are with that because we haven't deployed those, or so.
Yeah,
I guess
time's gonna
just
tell
kind of
how
putting that
much-
seed in there, that might come sometime, but hopefully it's not an issue, especially with everything on the file.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess we really have to, and that's going to be up to Carla
Yeah.
and Lieutenant to kind of figure out how long it would take to redact, depending on the length of the video,
Yeah.
and then what incorporated documents. Those should be, the documents I think should be easy to do, right? Documents, they're pretty easy to do. It's the, yeah.
Gotcha. Do we have to buy more equipment for that, or is that something that's all done through the company?
All done through the company.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. We've been in contact with NextWorks to identify a computer that's going to be responsible for the docking stations. And the location of where that's going to be inside the office, I don't know. That's going to be a surprise. But we'll have a computer that'll be able to, where an officer can come in and check this out. Each one of them will have it. They check it out and check it in. They can get on that computer and identify sections of the 12-hour video or sections of their daily duty video that needs to be identified and what's the word I'm looking for? Sectioned off to go with that report or incident case number. So, yeah.
Before you get off the public records real quick, I wanted to add something in. So I had a great meeting with the lieutenant and the chief about public records and the potential impacts of, after watching this webinar about video cameras and public records requests. The one thing I want to emphasize that chief didn't bring up, and that is something I hadn't thought about, and that is, your police officers have a hard enough job, whether they're rescuing kittens on one call, and
That's fire department.
That's
Fire
fire
department. Easy.
trying to
Sorry, I took offense to that.
trying to pull
Hit a nerve on that
survivors
one.
from wrecks on the next call, right? So it's pretty dramatic. The public records clerk or whoever's going to do that is going to be asked to go through the footage of some of the most dramatic moments of what those officers go through. So whether it's the clerk, whether it's the lieutenant, whether it's anybody else who's asked to do that, there's going to be a significant, pull on the heartstrings and a lot of stress and trauma associated with that. And I'd never considered that before. So I think the chief doesn't think about that because his guys have the mental, pressure and assault on as part of their daily job. But that's an additional staff member that's going to have to start dealing with that trauma. So we didn't mention it, but that totally impresses me that somebody's going to have to do that and take on that responsibility.
Thank you. And then when it comes to recruiting, I know that you want to have a full staff, and the city administrator and myself have had conversations about that, what that looks like during is there any plans for recruiting yet at this point, or I know you talked about retention with the training and
Well, I think the biggest challenge for recruiting is trying to get people excited about police work in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
The most difficult part is if we go to any type of out-of-state training or out-of-state business, we're laughed at because of the restrictions the government has put on us. So there's not a whole lot of people that are excited about doing it. We do have a few entry-level ones that are very interested in starting their career in law enforcement, and that's exciting. But that's every bit of a year before they can really have an effect on our overtime budget, our manpower shortages, and the like. So Yeah. We'll continue to look for, and we do have pretty good conversations when it comes to recruiting at the police and sheriff's conference, police chiefs and sheriff's conferences. Everybody has their own ideas on what that looks like. I know there's quite a few. I think that the State Patrol still sends their guys to recruiting fairs or recruiting events. And that could be something to consider, but then we're looking at funding to send officers or whoever to that. So those are the things that we've kind of maybe avoided a little bit just because of the funding issues. But at the same time, we do have other officers that might be interested in the Woodland Police Department for whatever reasons. We've had several officers, lateral officers over the years come into Woodland just because we have a luxury that most larger agencies don't. An officer can take ownership of a call from start to finish. They're not required by policy or by me to, unless it's really going to take some time to investigate that, they're not required to hand that over to another officer. They're not required to hand that over to our investigation division. So they're able to take ownership, and that was one of the things that a lot of the officers talk about when you talk about what's the pros and cons of the Woodland Police Department. And that's one of the bigger ones, where they can take ownership from the minute they get the call, all the way through till it goes to court and it's over. So, yeah.
That is really nice.
And they get really good at processing the evidence. They get really good. They have huge, hundreds of years of resources in our department between all the time that our officers have on. We have a patrol officer who was a detective for 7 years, and that guy's a bulldog when it comes to investigations. And the newer officers can learn from them. With the lieutenant, she's got a handful of years as an investigator, drone pilot included. Me, with my years of investigative division work, Sergeant Keller with his traffic work. So we have resources in-house, and the object of the game is to try to get everything in-house. Right now, Sergeant Gibbs is going through defensive tactics school, so that we don't have to count on external entities to help us out with training, and we can maintain that training. Yes, sir.
The chief, you said you'd like to segue to, I'm sure it's more support of you guys. It's kind of far reach. I'd love to see a K9 unit, but that's kind of expensive. But what about a drone?
Well,
That
would
be the next big kind of thing I'd like to help see you
I
guys.
did have some pretty good, well, when we first started, drones first started showing up in the business, Sergeant Lip and I were talking about it. I had the conversation with Officer Murray, and most recently, the conversation with Lieutenant Ortiz. She is a card-carrying drone pilot, FAA-approved drone pilot. So we have that resources. We just have to get that. But what I would like to see is a drone for each team. So 2 drones and maybe a throwdown at the office to have that.
Yeah.
And those are pretty reasonable as far as pricing is concerned. But if we want to get crazy and get the FLIR ones and all that other stuff, we're talking about $15,000, $30,000. Yeah.
What, the Auto 45 ones?
Yeah, exactly. But what I'd like to do is have the medium looking ones for each team, and then a bigger one at the office for overall stuff. And that's our future. But yeah, we have those opportunities, because I'd like to have officers that are responsible for those drones, send them, leading towards the retention aspect of my little talk here. But to send those guys to the FAA school so they can be card-carrying members. County is a great resource for us. The good part is we have that resource in Clark and Cowlitz County. Cowlitz County has 5 drone pilots. Longview has a handful as well. Not sure if Kelso does. But we have those resources right now available to us. It'd be nice to be part of that in-house thing, and I want that one of my goals are before I leave here is have everything in-house, so we have to count on other individuals to help us out. So in preparation for, and more, so you guys are making me talk longer now.
Yeah.
But in preparation of the potential retirements that could happen any minute, Sergeant Keller is going to firearms school. Sergeant Lip or Sergeant Gibbs is going to defensive tactics school in preparation for Detective Casey may be retiring in the next handful of years. Of course, Officer Murray could go anytime. Sergeant Lip could go anytime. So those are vacancies that would need to be filled, and would unfortunately when they retire, those guys would take specialties with them. So in preparation of that, I'm giving officers an opportunity to go to some of these specialty schools.
I can see you trying to cross-train her.
Yeah.
Sort of get her to train up so somebody can move in without this big dead gap of, oh crap, how do we
Yes,
fill
sir.
these shoes?
Yes, sir. That's what we're trying to do. You know, my certification for firearms driving and all that stuff expired, a couple of weeks ago, but
Horse and buggy.
yeah. So we do have those resources, and we're identifying officers now because of the tenure, the young tenure of a handful of our officers. Those officers have to wait until that 2-year window before they can actually take an active role in those specialty spots.
But they can train beforehand.
We can make sure that they're trained before then. Matter of fact, Officer Shaka, we've identified him to go to field training officer school. He'll be good to go November 1st, but we can send him to that training in between now and November 1st. Yeah.
I can do it, I think, hardly.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So you mentioned about Kelso, they use the amateur youth club because they got a whole bunch of girls and a lot of qualified people.
Yeah. Yeah. We have the resources around here, but like I said, the ultimate goal is to get everything under our umbrella.
See, yeah, 'cause the resources here, but sometimes not readily available when the officer needs them.
Exactly, and sometimes, and matter of fact, it's been an email conversation between Sergeant Lip, all the sergeants and me, and the lieutenant, just identifying the drone pilots for Collins County. But let's find out what their policies are for call-out. If those officers are not working, do they stagger their shift so that there's a drone on 24/7? Or is there an opportunity for us to go, hey, wait a second, here's the policy, these are all the rules that we have to do when we call the sheriff to ask him to send us a drone. So everybody's got that kind of policy, and that obviously would be something that we're doing, because we have a policy in place that Officer Kelly is the only drug recognition officer in Southwest Washington. So he's the only game in town. And so we have processes and procedures when people say, hey, Kelly, I need a guy. Okay, let me find out if he's available. If he's on, he's going to go. But then we could potentially leave the city naked, and I don't want to do that.
Short-handed, yeah.
So there's opportunities here for growth. But the drug recognition expert thing is critical. He enjoys that. That's what and that guy is really good at doing that. He can identify any drug that a person is intoxicated by. He's pretty good at it. And he's also a standard field sobriety test instructor. So he goes around and teaches those. So that's part of his continuing education as a DRE. We have to send him to training every couple of years. So another added budget item, right?
So what I'm hearing is we need to send you to places you can poach other departments of people.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Just like they do to
Thank
us.
you, Deanna.
Yeah.
Well, because we've been the victim of poaching.
Yes.
So yeah,
It is.
it's I don't I know that I just in my heart I can't do that, because I know other people have the same angst that I do when it comes to keeping my roster full. So in my heart, I can't do it.
I got a
I mean,
shoulder
if I was
to
a-
do it,
if-
try my shoulder, okay?
If I
Don't
was
worry about it.
if I was a cutthroat guy, yeah. But I know that when I wore a different shade of blue, people actually handed me their business cards to go work for another.
You chief, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You need a cutthroat chief.
So
I know it's hard enough to get bodies in the door, but I think we have an opportunity here that once we get those bodies in the door, create innovative ways to make sure that those individuals are happy here and want to stay. Because we've got a great community.
So that's kind of the thing, is I think you don't have a big pool of people that are woodlanders
Yes.
already that want to get in law enforcement. So what we have to do is kind of, whoever comes here, we need to
Embrace
them and make them woodlanders
Yes,
and
ma'am.
get them invested in the community to where they want to stay here until retirement.
Well, I
And-
think we're in June, we're gonna see that. I think that's gonna help. Because they're gonna
Planners Day.
realize how cool Father's Day weekend is.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
To your mind,
Especially now, our brand new folks that are gonna be here for the 100th year celebration. I think that's gonna be, maybe I'll make them all lead the parade. Instead of me, so people can throw candy at them.
Oh, it's the other way around.
Yeah, but I think, there's been a couple of times that it was thrown back at me. But those are people that I know,
I've
so.
got 2 more things before you walk away. They're easy. I know, they're easy. Listen, this is my time now. You're out.
Your time's not on, it's not on the agenda.
I've
Your
got
time's
time
on-
everywhere. I've got time everywhere.
I
I've
think it's
supplanted.
David first.
Supplanted.
Yeah, but
Hey,
it's,
it's
you know.
1:15.
I'm at the grocery store yesterday. I just want you to know that even I get comments back, and Sergeant Keller was called out about a wonderful job of investigation that he did in December. You can pass that along. The gal that was working the check stand, I didn't catch her name, but she had nothing but praise to say about him and his investigative skills and how they got the bad guy, and she was, even the neighbors were happy with that.
Good.
And I get continual calls from the school as well, saying thank you for sending an officer. It was great. They were wonderful to work with. Before I let you away from the table, you made a comment to me in passing a couple weeks ago about pre-COVID that Woodland was a place to.
Was I conscious?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It used to be, or the feeling was, if I was a bad guy and I came to Woodland, we knew we were going to jail.
Yes.
We knew something was happening. Something was going to happen to us if I wanted to do harm in Woodland community.
Yes.
Then COVID happened. We had to kind of dial that back. Do you see us getting back to that again?
I do see us getting back to that. However, we are restricted. I know Carla's fielded those phone calls as well as Donnie, where the jail tells us we're DEFCON 2 and can't book anybody. And
Okay.
so we're looking forward to those opportunities again, but I don't know what that's going to look like.
Okay.
I did have a conversation, well, kind of a brief conversation with the ED for the jail, and they're still facing challenges, but right now they're only accepting felony bookings, and many of the bookings that we did were misdemeanor bookings, but they turned into felonies because that's when drugs were illegal. And so we would still take those opportunities to book an individual for gross misdemeanor violations. But I don't know when that's going to happen.
Okay. I know, I can't imagine that. I'm sure it's frustrating for the officers to not be able to do their job
Well, we had
effectively.
a really good law enforcement reputation,
Yeah.
where if you, no matter how small the crime, if you committed a crime in the city of Woodland, you were going to the podium. So
I think our community deserves that.
We need to
And I
get
think
that
our
back.
officers deserve to be able to do that.
I agree with that.
So I hope that we can get back to that again.
I agree with
I
that.
look forward to it, so.
Yes, I will keep you guys posted. I mean, obviously you'll hear some of the things. And I guess the best part about it is our jail budget is down.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy, we took 11 minutes off of yours.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody gets a break. Everybody wanted to break.
Oh,
You want to break between.
Let's just take a quick 4-5-minute break.
It hasn't been an hour.
Oh yeah, 52 minutes.
Yeah, but he
but
started,
I
he was
started
going,
welcoming.
he was going for like 20.
4 minutes, eh?
Whatever you do, you gotta hurry.
I think that's the rules. I think that's small government rules.
I found an error on my. Can you pull mine up? It's on the very first page.
Who's heading this way?
It says the past 2000 and this year too.
But the reasonable suspicion thing is coming back.
Don't worry, keep talking about that. I'll take out 11 minutes.
I was at 19 minutes, and then everybody started asking
Oh, I
questions.
know.
Are you going next?
I am, yes.
Carla, do you want a copy of my talking points for the?
Yeah, it will. You should that today, but
Yeah, I'll
I
do it.
kind of did more.
Okay. What? I can send it to you electronically too if you want.
Do you have handouts or you're just gonna do a PowerPoint?
I have it all.
Yeah.
Wait. You better stand up and do some jumping jacks.
Hey Tracy, you have to follow the chief, so I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I got you.
Should be fine.
I
So you got a PowerPoint?
got a PowerPoint. Yeah, I got a PowerPoint.
So we'll start with PowerPoint and we will end with another PowerPoint.
Good.
There we go.
Yeah.
Gina has a PowerPoint?
No, she doesn't have a PowerPoint.
Oh,
Thanks for
okay.
backing me up, Gina.
Just, I wanted to be in solidarity with the chief.
Well, I haven't been able to do a PowerPoint for a number of years now because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm living it up right now.
Put my.
You look like a little kid with that t-shirt on.
Dogger.
Doesn't he?
Do you feel how strong your back is working?
No.
Put your finger right there.
I'll put my finger in there.
Put your finger right there.
I got it right there.
From that. Oh,
Yeah, my wife.
I was going to ask Pete how he did that.
We lived out in the country and we put in this electric fence under the end with the wire,
Oh, yeah, no,
trying
no.
to keep our dog in there.
Oh, okay.
It didn't work. He'd go through
Oh, you
back.
just.
We had electric shock one, and I was shocking the dog when he just kept on, and he like, hey, and he just kept on going.
Yeah, I gave my buddy Dennis the dog collar and asked him to put it in my Jeep.
Oh, jeez.
You get a shot.
Spring loaded, actually.
That's not spring loaded.
Oh, the magnet's pulling it down.
Okay.
Yeah, don't touch.
Yeah.
No, you
Hey, Chief reinvented the mousetrap.
Why not?
I know, right? Speaking of that, I have a rat trap set up in my
Pop, pop, pop.
well pump house. I'm hoping I don't catch another possum because they play dead really good. And I went to
Oh,
pick it up
yes,
and it was
they do.
alive.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, ah! I gotta kill it. But so we'll see.
That was in Minnesota. That was in the backyard. Real big dog. He's walking around there with a possum.
Yeah.
Oh, finally got him to drop it. Looked like it was dead, so I go to the garage to get a shovel and come out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
So if there's something on that gas, turn it off, slip the battery out, it's just like putting it on a portable radio. Pretty easy to change.
Do you have photos?
You know how to do the slideshow?
to do that, I got several hands.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah, you can check with
Yeah,
it.
you're fine. Didn't we back up? No, go back to the.
Yeah, good.
Is it up there? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I know they're pretty active.
Good morning. How are ya?
She's good.
I may cry, but I can still get things done. There you go.
I'm a crier.
Oh, are you? I am if I'm emotional about something.
It doesn't matter what emotion it is. If it's a strong emotion, I'm gonna tear up.
Yeah, whether it's happy, sad, or whatever. Yeah.
You can just, I can just see like an old cartoon I haven't seen in 20 years.
Yeah.
I'll be like,
My son, I was doing something that made me so happy. I started crying. He's like, "What's the matter?" I said, "I'm so happy." He's like, "Why are you crying?"
it's just how my body reacts to strong emotion.
Exactly. I didn't thought of it that way. Yeah. Crybaby. He calls me.
There's a TikTok sound that's like, "If you call me a bitch, just remember to put sensitive in front of it."
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Oh, wait, I'm JJ. Just a minute.
Chop, chop, JJ.
That's a nice jacket.
Oh, yeah, with all
Thank you.
sleep.
Put your name on it.
It's got my name on it and everything. I want people to know who I am.
What the hell? Screen.
Did
And I
Monty
can go
sleep
pick up that
in?
stuff from Safeway if no one else wants
Do
to.
we know?
Good what?
No, you need
Did
to-
Monty
Oh,
sleep
okay.
in?
I don't know. I don't know.
Can't blame on daylight savings, that's tomorrow.
Is it?
We lose an hour of sleep tonight.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Monty said he'll be here at 10:30.
Yeah, he
Don't
sent me
lose an
back.
hour's
He
sleep
jumped.
if
Is
you
he back
don't
on
go to
here?
bed.
He jumped on for a minute and then, or for just.
That's a pretty good.
He jumped on for about 10 minutes or so and then he fell off. All right, Tracy.
You don't have to
Your
get
20
ready if you
minutes is
stay
starting
ready.
now.
Okay.
Your half hour.
That's my new granddaughter.
Oh, is this your bit? And
That's why I didn't do a PowerPoint,
She
because I knew it
was
was
born
going to
last
say.
week,
Ta-da!
and she just got those perfect little cheeks.
Yeah.
Oh, she's going to do a
The
tour.
princess has arrived.
See, I have a hard time anytime I go out and do public speaking. I can't sit there. I have to get up in the middle of the
One
room
more.
and walk
One more.
and walk.
Interact, that's,
Ah.
draws the crowd in.
Oh.
Why'd you make it blue?
Because it's for water, it's clear. I was gonna make it. I got some different colors going on in there.
All right, 9:58. Go.
All right, are you guys ready to listen? Because I'm ready to talk,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
can talk fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get 9:15.
All right. So obviously this is a Public Works Department presentation. So I'm going to present on what we did this past year in 2021, what we are going to do this year, 2022, and then a little bit of beyond. As you know, we schedule every year. But before I do that, I want to give kudos to all the departments that I work with, and that includes our City Council and our Public Works Committee, because Public Works is who they are because of who we work with. And so if I didn't get support from the city administrator and the mayor and Gina and Travis and the police department and the fire department for all the training that we do and all the projects that we do and the money that we need and the GL accounts to put it to or the training that I need to be able to enter the police department building or whatever, Public Works wouldn't be as successful as they are today. So I just want you guys to know that I want to thank each and every one of you that are here in this room and for your support, and the mayor for hiring me, because I really do enjoy working at Woodland, and Pete for always being there when I'm going in and complaining in his office, because I do complain. We all complain. Nobody's job's
That's right.
perfect.
That's right.
And he supports me and he listens to me and he's like, yeah, and he just shakes his head and nods. And that's okay. But sometimes you just need to vent
Sounds
and then you're done. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the police chief for letting me call him dude all the time when he's not a dude. He's the chief of police. And Travis for letting me cry in his ear and basically disagree with everything that he says. And he disagrees with what I say. But we still get along, right?
Right.
And then Gina for looking up 15,000 million documents that she has to look up for me every month and tell me that I'm missing this deposit or this slip or whatever I have to turn into her. But she's always nice about it. She's like, oh, I'm missing this. Okay, well, I'll get it to you. Okay, well, whenever you can. So I just appreciate that about you. So anyway, thank you for everybody for that.
Citizens for giving you the money.
Huh?
And the citizens for giving the money.
Well, we're going to talk about that because really the citizens don't give that much money in regards to what we brought in. So we'll talk about that. And I have a nice example of what we're using of citizens' money versus what we brought in. So we can go to the next slide now. Thank you. Okay, so really on our capital projects for 2021, some of you were here last year, some of you were not. So our capital projects in 2021, that's anything that's like a substance, something on the ground, like a tank or a road or a building or something like that. So when you think about that. So our Sky Hill Booster Station, obviously we had that completed in 2021. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the capital projects because I have some photos following this presentation, but and we'll get into that a little bit later. So the booster station we completed, water treatment plant number 1 filter, there's 3 filters up there. We're in the process of completing that now. In the next couple months that should be done. TIB, GORG overlay and pre-overlay repair work and ADA ramps. As you guys all know, if you look at GORG Street, we have a brand new road on GORG Street. We have brand new ADA ramps. That's been done. That was a grant. Our wastewater treatment plant headwork screen project, we're finishing that up this next month. That's been done, and so that keeps our regs out of our pumps. And then also the purchase of Davidson for the expansion of the City Hall. That is now officially complete. And so now I'm in the midst of doing some really, really minor remodels so we can move into that and bring our documents from 100 Davidson over into City Hall and Public Works so we can actually utilize 100 Davidson and get some rental return out of that. So next slide, please. So our small works project, so this is anything that's, it's not a huge capital project, not millions of dollars, but this is what we do when we go out to bid for maintenance and other projects that we have going on. So for instance, we have to clean our water lagoon every year. So we had the water lagoon cleaning that we've completed, City Hall duct installation for my cloffice. We call that because it's a closet that we turned into an office, so my cloffice. 100 Davidson, we had some mold in there, so we did a mold remediation. We had a window that was leaking, we did that. We had roof leaking, so we repaired that. Our sewer line video work, we have a lot of areas where we have plugged sewer lines, so we go out and we do video work. And we call it TV in it, which is actually a television, like scoping it out to see what's going on in the lines, to see if there's bellies or if we have blockage in the lines. Lift station backout work, as you know, we did preventive maintenance. I brought this at the last council meeting, stating that we had reduced our overtime work, man hours, which I shared with you guys, shared it with the committee and with the council. Our Fraser and CC sewer line work, so we had 2 sections of line that we had to repair where we had plugs and backup, so we did that job. Fence repair, we had multiple areas where people cut through our fence. They cut through our public works fence and stole our, cut our, off the bottom, come on, what's the number 1 thing everybody's stealing off the bottom?
Catalytic
converter, yeah. Really? So, yeah, oh yeah, we've had those stolen, so, you know, we have to go out and repair it. We have people that go off the freeway all the time on exit 21, crash into our wastewater plant, so we have to repair that fence. We've repaired that 3 times now. So those are small works projects. We had asphalt road repair, so every year we get potholes around the city, and we put cold mix asphalt in there. Well, cold mix doesn't last. It's a temporary patch. So we have to go through the whole entire city when we're done with our cold mix repair, and then we cut out larger sections and we do hot mix asphalt to keep our roads looking somewhat decent. So then we have, we did an asphalt boat launch repair. As you guys know, if you go down to Horseshoe Lake Park, you'll see we cut a big area out and we didn't get close enough where we had to worry about certain permitting going down into the water, right? Then we did, boy, that's kind of hard to see, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Can we turn the light? I'm going to turn the light off.
See this fine. Nap time.
I have sunglasses on.
I'll turn the light off, you guys can go to sleep. Is that a little better?
No.
No.
I think it's because there's a window behind it.
Well, I closed everything.
There you go.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, if I can't see it,
I
then I'm
can't
like,
even
holy
see the
cow.
bottom line.
Okay, so then I did some sidewalks. So there was and this was kind of more as, you guys know how I feel about this, the complete streets ordinance that I just got passed, right? Okay, so if you drive around Woodland, there's tons of areas where we're missing sidewalks. There's a little section of sidewalks that we've missed. So the Atlantic and Love Street sidewalk project, you know, we tried to do the majority of the sidewalks going down Atlantic, and then we had a little section on Love Street that was just, I'll show you pictures of it later that you know, we did that project. That's a small works project. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then we had multiple water leaks throughout the year that we have to do emergency repairs on. Sometimes a contractor hits our main water line and we have to do emergency repair. And then we have our lift station number 1, bypass it. We did a repair on that. And then I can't even read that last one. A water treatment plant gate valve.
Gate relocation.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, holy cow. Is my eyes that bad? Is my eyes? That's good English, huh? Are my eyes that bad? Yeah, so we actually, I'll show you pictures of that later. So let's go to the next slide, please. Now, these are just, I'm going to go up closer because, she's, I can't see squat. My eyes getting bad?
Tracy, really? You get that bad?
Yeah.
The black's just not.
Yeah, and you know, because it goes into that darker blue.
Yeah.
I should have made it white. Okay.
Alright,
So in regards to this, I'm just going to read a little bit of it because, again, some of you have not been in the city before. Hey, no taking pictures. I'll give you a copy of it. No, I'll give you a copy of the whole slideshow. if you want.
Yeah, this is the only, this part here,
Oh, yeah.
what you maintain, because that's a lot of
It
data.
is, and that's what the reason why I bring this up, because I don't
Yeah.
think people realize
How
what
much you got
what
out
we
there.
maintain in the city
Right.
with the limited amount of employees until this year, where we were able to hire 2 more and then we lost 1, so now I'm still down short of employees. So we maintain over 500 hydrants, 384 streetlights. Over. When I say over, it means we haven't updated it for the last year. 34 miles of streets, 11 facilities, 28 miles of sewer lines, 41 miles of water lines, 14 lift stations, 434 storm drain catch basins, and 7 parks. And that's going to include Rolling Hills, which is a skate park, which we count as separate, and then Scott Hill Park will be another one that we're maintaining. But what people don't realize is I want you to take your family, and I want you to think if you have a family of 5, I want your family of 5 to maintain that. Because that's what we're doing. You know, if you think about it. Because some of it's administrative, but if you're looking at the labor force that's out there maintaining that's what's doing that. So just take that in mind when you're like, how come my sewer bill's up? Well, we're maintaining 42 miles of sewer. It might not seem like a lot, but when you're replacing 1 block, you're at $500,000. For a half a block, or 1 block of sewer line, $500,000. So anyway, I just want you guys to be aware of that. So our regular yearly maintenance, this is just stuff that we have to do every single year on top of our asphalt stuff. You know, we pick the Randy Well line. That's our water line that comes from the Randy Well up to the water plant. We do roof clean and drainage for City Hall. Now we have spruce that we've added. We do 100 Davidson. We do the community center. Street sweeping the entire city. So 40, how many miles? 42 miles, no, how many miles?
34.
34 miles of road, we're street sweeping, 34 miles. That's coordination of getting people to move their cars, not doing it during a garbage day where people have their garbage cans out.
Do you do that twice a year still?
Twice a year,
Twice a
yeah.
year.
We need to do it 3 times a year.
Yeah,
But
it'd be nice.
it's $15,000 to $18,000 every time we street sweep. So, you know, now you add a $20,000 bill onto the budget, you know, because the cost of living increase, yada, yada, yada. Curb painting, so as you see, we try to catch up on that. I'm going to put a bid out to get all of our curb painting done for the entire city because it hasn't been maintained because we've been limited on staff. So you get it up, you get it out, you get it painted, and then you try to maintain it again. Lift station pumping repairs, flag raising, you know, you might think, who lowers and raises the flags? Who keeps the flags out in the city? You know, we have 3 flags that we have out in the city, so if anything happens, you have to lower them. 4. The 5 with the fire, you know, you have to lower them every time. Park maintenance, pothole repairs, asphalt patching, street light change outs. We've changed out 50% of the lights here in the city now from HPS LED. That saves on electrical bill. Fleet vehicles, so all of the police vehicles, all of our vehicles, we maintain all of those, and usually it's just one guy with the help of another. Spraying all of our weeds, so all of the right-of-ways, the 20-some miles of streets, that's all of our right-of-way. So we're spraying weeds on that 20-some miles. Hydrant flushing, we have 500 hydrants. You gotta flush the hydrants. You have to paint the hydrants. Road striping, sidewalk crossings, you know, those have to be torched down. You have to do those every couple of years. Park revenue stream, you know, what do we do to bring money into our parks so we don't spend that money on the general fund? So these are just all regular stuff that we're looking at and trying to figure out how are we going to do this. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about funds. So we applied for grants every single year since I've been here. And so in 2020, 2021, we applied for 4 TIB grants to maintain our roads because we don't have any road maintenance dollars, as you know. It's very limited. So I try to make as much as I can with the limited amount of funds that we have to make it stretch. So we applied for 4, we didn't receive any. But if you remember years past, we've received some. So it goes in cycles when you receive them. We did the 2021 RAISE grant. It was submitted late. They did not accept it. We're applying for it again in April. CDBG Beachwood Sidewalk, we applied for that. We didn't receive it. But 2 years prior, we received it, right? We got 3/4 of Beachwood done. And then 2 years prior to that, we did the whole other side of Beechwood. So as you know, you receive it some years and you don't. Cowlitz County Rural Funding, we applied for that, we received that. That's for our Davidson Waterline crossing, and then the CW COG TA grant, which is South Peak and Sidewalk, a bike which goes down South Peak and on the other side of Horseshoe Lake. We didn't receive it, but that doesn't mean that we give up. We're going to apply for it again. So we'll go to the next slide. Oh, let me stand back here, make sure you're awake.
Oh.
Okay, so our capital projects for 2022, if it has a asterisk on it, those are our carryover projects that we started last year and we're still carried over into this year. So we have the water treatment plant filter, the wastewater treatment plant headwork screen, and all of those who haven't been out and toured the facility, if you want to go out and see what this is, reach out, send me an email. I'll get it set up, okay? Davidson BNSF Railroad Waterline Crossing, we got that from rural funding. That's going to be happening next month. Westcott BNSF Waterline Crossing, I put COVID water funds. We did receive those funding, so that's actually happening this right now. It's actually happening right now. If you go down Westcott Avenue, that's in process right now. Westcott.
Is that the ARPA money?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
I think it's important to know too, but because council decided to move that over there, some of the issues that Tracy has identified, we don't have to raise rates. So, I mean, because some of the things that have been identified that we're using this money for was not accounted for in our capital plan.
Yeah, so that's $500,000.
It was a very smart move for council to do that, so thank you.
Yeah, and so then we have the Westcott Avenue Railroad Pedestrian Pavement Crossing. So that's another grant. That's coming right after we do this waterline crossing that's over on Westcott Avenue. We'll go right into another grant project, then we'll go right into another one after that. So we'll talk about that. We have the Lakeshore Drive Road Resurface. That's in engineering right now. So we're going to have that bike and pedestrian path. So you're going to see that going on right there at Lakeshore Drive this year. We have the water treatment plant filter 3 that'll be coming up and going after filter 2's done. We have the wastewater treatment plant headwork screen project. Again, we just had L&I get back to us this week, so we'll be completing that this month. We're going to be going out for bonding for our 1.5 million gallon reservoir and start our engineering. We've already started the engineering on that. And then we have lift station number 8 rebuild that we're going to be doing this year. So those are some of the capital projects that we have going on this year.
How much is a rebuild on the lift station, just so?
Well, it was $500,000 a few years ago, so we're probably looking at $700,000.
So they're very large ticket items, and we have 14 of those, I think, in here.
14,
14
yeah.
lift stations.
And so you have to do them every so many cycles. So you got to figure you spend about $500,000 or more than $500,000 every single year on lift stations because it's a cycle. Yeah. Okay. So our small works projects for this year, we have we just finished the cleaning of all our water reservoirs. So that's nice, that's done. We are continuing to do our lift station backouts. As you guys have gone out, and I don't know if you've gone by the community building, but see, the community building, we're re-siding and roofing that.
Yeah.
When was that community building built? 1950. Nothing's been done with it since 1950 until we remodeled it 2 years ago on the inside, and now we're doing the outside. So those are things that need to be done. The Horseshoe Lake gazebo, I'm still working on that. That's a work in progress. I'm not going to go into that one right now. Security camera installation, we're installing security cameras because of the theft that we've been having at our water treatment plant, wastewater plant, and public workshop. That's going to be happening in the next couple months. Reservoir number 2, we did some seismic work. After we did the seismic work and we figured out if we could repair the leak, there was no guarantee that we could repair the leak on that 500,000 gallon tank. So, and there was a lot of seismic work that had to be done and the foundation. So we've decided to decommission the 500,000 gallon. That's why we're moving forward with the now 1.5 million gallon reservoir because we have to replace what we're decommissioning. Okay? And then the police station parking lot, we're going to be seal coating the police station parking lot here and probably a couple other parking lots here within the city. Okay, so the grants that we're applying for in 2022 this year is, again, we're applying for TIB for 4 different roads for regular maintenance on the roads. RCO grant, we're going to be applying for that to get some artificial turf up at Scott Hill. We'll be working with the Scott Hill Rotary. I want to say Rotary. I was like, Chamber Rotary. But we need to meet with them first and let them know, make sure they're in a partnership with us on that. We're going to reapply for the RAISE grant, which is for Exit 21. That's going to be a $15 million grant. That's we're submitting for in April. I'm going to also apply for CDBG in the fall for downtown sidewalk revitalization. I was walking downtown going in front of the Teriyaki Spice in the dollar store, looking at our curbing and sidewalk of the Porsche. Now, technically, we could go back to everybody who owns that road frontage and say, you need to replace that sidewalk. But if I can get a grant for it, I'd rather go that route. If we don't, then I'll go and address them and say, hey, we've applied for a grant, we didn't get it, but so you need to fix it. Safe routes to school, remember we have, and the bike and pedestrian, that is, we have 2 phases on that, and that's all along State Route 503. So that goes from the intermediate school out on State Route 503 to Gun Club, that's phase 1. And then from Gun Club back to the roundabout on State Route 503, that's phase 2. So we're going for, and those are both $1.5 million grants apiece that we're going for on that. And then we have DNR. We just applied for a DNR grant, which is Department of Natural Resources, and that's to do a tree inventory and an assessment GIS layer of our trees, and then revise our tree list here for the city of Woodland. So we're doing that as well. Okay, now we get the fun stuff. So I'm how many minutes have I been
You're
here?
doing great. You're doing great.
How many minutes though?
10, 17, 18, 19 minutes. In.
See, I'm already. Now we get the fun stuff.
Yeah, see, I was at 19, I was done at 19.
You were done at 19.
Good job,
He
Chief.
was done at 19.
All right. So on top.
Wait,
Yeah.
are you did you talk about our collaborative project?
The teleport?
Nope,
Which one?
the art project.
Not yet. I'm getting there.
Is it on the PowerPoint?
No, 'cause I don't have a picture of it, but I should have put it up
I
there.
showed you. a picture of it.
I know. We'll talk about that.
Okay, go.
Thank you. Okay, go. Okay, so what I'm going to hand out to you right now, so I talked about all the grants and everything. So what I'm handing out to you right now, and I'm going to share with you, is that these are the list of grants that I track. And so just so you know what's been what we've done to date. Let me hand it out, and I want you guys to look at it. Okay, so you're going to flip over to the back side.
Ooh, the sun moved.
Now I gotta wear glasses.
Okay, so if you look at the backside, and you're talking about all this money and spending and stuff. So let's talk about this for a minute. So on the backside it says completed. So those are the grants that we received. We've received 1.5 that are completed. These projects we've completed 1.5 million of grant spending, and we've matched 88,000. So we as a city have only put in 6% of the funding of what we've spent on projects. So we've spent, $1.5 million in projects or grant funding, and we've only put in 6%. Okay? Huh? I wish I'd get that return on my IRA. I'd be retired. Okay, then you look at the front page. The ones on the top section are in process of being awarded. Those are all ones that we've been awarded. So these aren't ones that we haven't completed, but now we've also have been awarded nearly $4.9 million in grants, and of that our match is $500,000. So what percent is that? Come on.
I'll still take a yield on that one.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, you talk about all the money that we're spending on taxpayers' dollars. Look at how much money.
It's being spent wisely.
Well, look at how much money we're spending, $500,000, but we're getting $5 million in grants.
Right, taxpayers' money.
No, it is really.
Well, it is.
Well, but it's the state of Washington and the federal government, not Woodland.
Right.
Okay? So yeah. So what I'm saying is that's what you have to look at. So the ones that are down below, those are the ones that we're resubmitting, and we're going to be waiting to hear back. So we just continue on. So I just want you guys to be aware that we're doing a really good job as a city of making sure that we get the most bang for our buck in our dollars that we collect from our taxpayers.
I knew that.
And because you get grants,
Right.
the likelihood that you will get other grants goes up.
And correct, and even though I reapplied, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel. I keep reapplying the same, and then like, okay, whatever, we're just going to give it to her. So I'm going to give you an example. This one that we're in the midst of, so we went to a TIB just a minute, what's the meeting I just went to? It was the TAC.
Oh, okay.
TAC, yes, thank you. Yeah. No, I just, yesterday, what's the meeting? Yeah, thank you. Gosh, Dave, thank you. There's so many dang acronyms with all the stuff I work with. So anyway, we went there, Catherine presented for us, we scored other projects. We scored poorly on a project, but because of our passion, our desire to keep saying, here we are again. One of the cities said, we're willing to give up $300,000 to support the city of Woodland in this, so we're slated to get the money. Because they gave up, because theirs was $1.5 million, and they said, we'll put in an extra $300,000 so Woodland will get theirs.
Nice.
Longview did.
Good.
So, yeah, so we'll be sending them, when we get the official award, we'll be sending them a thank you. And that's part of, and the reason why we said it's part of the county where we have that bike lane and the sidewalks that go on Gun Club Road, which is part of that. I told you the phase 1, which is an intermediate school to Gun Club Road. So what we're doing is part of that Safe Routes School grant, that was part of that. We said we want to kind of take a little bit of the load off when we apply for that, showing that we're partnershiping with it. So they thought that was a great plan, so that's why they said they'd give us money. So, yeah, so it's all the way you play it, right? Okay, so then now some stuff. So another thing that we do in Public Works is we do it through a full donation process. We reach out to community members and we say, hey, will you sponsor us for Hot Summer Nights and Movies in the Park? Now, Hot Summer Nights used to be by the Downtown Woodland Revitalization. They used to put that on every year, had the bands and everything. We partnered with them about 4 years ago, and we said, hey, we'll do that, but we want to add movies in the park. Started to become really successful over 2 years ago. Had a really good turnout. We had a couple hundred people. The last thing, the COVID hit, pretty much shut it down. We reopened it really quickly within a week last year when we were allowed to collect more than 50 people in a park at a time in a gathering. We started up, had a few showings last year, a few bands, but this year we're going to make it bigger and better. So here's our current schedule right now, what movies we're going to be showing and what days we're going to have our Hot Summer Nights this year. June 24th, July 8th, July 15th, 22nd, 29th, August 12th, and August 19th. Those are going to be our Hot Summer Nights. And you can see we already have our bands. Oh, I don't think it shows it on there. I cut it off. I'm sorry. We have all our bands already selected and stated that they're ready to go. We already have our tractor displays. We have classic vehicles. Everybody's already lined up. Our military vehicle display. So we're getting that ready to go. So we're going to start advertising early. So just so you know that's happening.
So what's the theme night?
Theme night. So like for instance, the theme night is Welcome Back. So we're going to have a tractor display on that night. Military night, we're going to have a military vehicle display. Superhero night, we're going to do classic vehicles and have little kids dress up as superheroes. Sports night, we'll have classic vehicles. We're going to have volleyball set up out in the field. And then we're going to try to see if we can get, this one we haven't confirmed yet, the high school to come out and have their sport teams out there for recruiting and do little games for some of the little kids in the community, which we had set up before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So that and heavy equipment night, we already have the construction equipment and vehicle that's going to be out on display, so that's kind of what it's about. So, okay, so next slide. And that's all done through donations. This is something that we partnershiped with DWR. We partnershiped with them and we came in together to put up these nice swags and the poles that the swags hang on and for banners. So not only now are we able to bring in revenue for the city and DWR for people being able to put banners up on these poles, but also look at what it did to downtown. So that's something that if you haven't been downtown to our Winterfest or been downtown Woodland, it is absolutely beautiful. And that's the goal, is to make our town beautiful, where people go, oh my gosh, what a great town, right? Mm-hmm. So, next. Okay, so this is a free service that we provide. We provide a lot of free services to our citizens. For instance, if we have flooding, we provide sandbags. We provide the bags and the sand and the shovels for them to fill it up in the shop if they need that. But another thing is when people get rid of their Christmas trees, we tell them to go and dump it down here at our parking lot in the skate park. And then we go out and we cut the trees up and chip the trees up and haul all that out. So that's a free service that we offer to our citizens. And then training with the fire department, they come out and do the set the pit on fire, and then we do our fire extinguisher training, and we get all the fire extinguishers tested every year for all of our facilities throughout the city, police, fire, everywhere. We test all the fire extinguishers.
Was that Kathy?
That was Kathy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. My eyes are bad too.
Yeah. That's why I think I'm close. Anyway, and then also just regular maintenance. So, we do all of our right-of-way trimming throughout the city. How many miles of roads?
44.
34.
34?
34 miles of street.
34.
34,
All right.
right? Okay, is it 34 or 24?
34.
Just 34.
34. I'm glad you guys, see, that's why I keep you guys, keep on So 34 miles of right-of-way trimming. So 34 miles, do we have to say, okay, what tree's hanging over, what do we have to take out, what tree's dead? What do we got to get out there, what do we got to grind, what stumps do we have to grind, etc. And then, homeless camp cleanup. You guys don't think about that. You guys got to think about how we're trained and we go and we pick up the garbage along Atlantic. Atlantic is not our road. Atlantic is a state road. Pacific is not our road. That is a state road. The exit 21, exit 22, they're not ours. We are out there picking up garbage all the time. So when you take the exit, you drive down the road, it looks nice. So these are things you don't think about that Public Works does, but we're out there doing that and you don't know it because you don't see a lot of garbage out there. So we're continuously on it. Down on the other side of the embankment, the homeless camps that are there. When you go down there, you start to see a lot of needles left down there. You know, we worked with the police this last time to clean that up. They said, hey, we need to get out here because we're starting to see a lot of needles being left out there. So for safety issues, we went and cleaned it up with the police department. So anyway. So this is what I was telling you about, Love Street sidewalk. So before there was no sidewalk there, it was just it needed to have a sidewalk, so we just added a new sidewalk in there. It's not fully complete yet because we hadn't finished the road, asphalt work because it was too cold, but it's complete now. So if you haven't gone down there, just a little sidewalk, finishing them up throughout town. Projects, so this is just one of the projects I was talking about. We talked about gates, putting new gates in. This was our new gate that we put in at our water plant. Because with the Scott Hill Park going on up there, we have to actually have an alternate route for our trucks to go in instead of the route that they had before. So we put in a new gate up there. The Scott Hill Booster Station. So this is just, we have nice new pumps and pipes, and I always like pictures of that. I know you guys think I'm crazy, but that's nice and clean. It looks nice and fresh. So when I walk into a sewer plant, or I walk into the water plant, I want it to look like that. I don't want it to look like it's corroded, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of maintenance, so I have to see the new clean stuff when I show you guys. But don't worry, we're working on the water plant right now.
Did that bring the pressure back up?
Actually, yes, it did. It did. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it was 60 pounds.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was 15?
Before the booster pump went in? Yeah, that's correct. If not 20. So this is one of the grants that we had, the Gorg Overlay and ADA ramps that we had going on, and like I said, if you guys have driven down Gorg and going down towards Davidson, you'll see that the road's all nice and new. So you come off the exit, it looks like crap, you have potholes and everything everywhere, then you're right there when you hit Lakeshore, oh, the angels sing, right? So anyway, there's that. Okay, so here's some of the projects. So if you haven't gone to our wastewater plant, and you haven't had a tour, when you go out there, you'll see where we're finishing up this Headworks screen replacement. I am not going to read through this verbatim. I'm just telling you need to get out and look at it. This is on the, what's the grant things, what's the OpenGov, where we do our projects. So this is on there, you can read it. I'm going to give you a copy of the slideshow so you guys can have it and you can read it if you need more information on it. But this is just so basically this head screen project it keeps the rags out of our pumps and will elongate the lifespan of our pumps. So that's the reason why we did this project. This is the grant. This is the one I told you that we're going to have coming on. As you can see, a lot. That's kind of hard to see in that picture. Allogating in the road, so we're going to have a full road resurface, and we're going to have a 10-foot bike path and a pedestrian right there.
Which that ties into the walking trail that Cowlitz County has.
That's
listed.
correct.
That was done years ago around Horseshoe Lake, so this kind of incorporates that into the city as well.
Yeah.
Which
No,
is nice.
Don't they want to eventually start going north to almost like Ty Clam and stuff like that? Kind of
Yeah. So one of the reasons. Can you go back on that one, please? Thank you. One of the reasons why we do this is because you can see there's a pedestrian walking right there.
Right.
So there's a path that goes from over by past Luckman's Coffee. It comes from Kalama, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and they can walk all the way here along Horseshoe Lake. They can walk all back through the county, come back around through Horseshoe Lake, come up Pekin Road, which is one of the grants that we didn't receive funds on. So the key is I want the city to be pedestrian friendly. Because it makes people want to get here and move and work and play, like they say. So if there's no path, there's huge trucks that go down this road. You guys know that if you live here. There's huge trucks on the road. They're going you know, I said to go 1,000 miles an hour. It seems that way when you have a narrow road lane, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen people out here with baby strollers. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'd put my baby in a stroller on this road.
In high school,
no.
we'd walk there, but they're in PE class sometimes.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, death trap. That's the way I look at it. So anyway, so that's what we're doing there. Yeah.
Are we doing a whole Lakeshore or just in the city?
No, we can only go in the city limits. But my next goal is to combine with the county for that South Beacon Road that we got denied on. I'm going to go talk to the county, see if we can't do a joint one so that they can tie into that one, and then they can go around and tie into us here.
So South Anchor can down and.
Peek in and come all the way back around. Yep, yep, by
The
Wall
whole
Street,
walk-
so come back. Yep, that's the goal.
So,
Walking trail.
if you were to do that, then the next time somebody wants to have a run here,
We'd have a safe place
Yeah.
to do a 10-foot path,
Right.
bike and pedestrian.
so nobody's running down the middle of the road. and-
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And if we have a 10-foot path, we don't have to shut down the road.
That's right.
You know, or maybe we shut down just one lane to allow traffic to go instead of 2 lanes. Okay. But I'm not going to say that for sure because it depends on the size of the event.
Right.
So, okay, and then this is I put up there, just put grant so you know where the projects come from. So this is everybody pretty much who's been on council knows about this. I've talked about it because we've been working on this for years. So we have that full depth reclamation. As you can see, it goes from exit 21 right there on Pacific, goes all the way down West Scott Avenue to the railroad tracks, and then that's one grant. 20.
Oh no, that's considered 21 off ramp.
Well, it's 21 coming from the north end. Yeah. So and then it's also 21 coming from the south because you have to take 21 to go down Pacific. Frontage Road. So if you go from Pacific and you drive down to the railroad tracks, that's one grant. Then we have the 2 grants crossing the track. Well, we have one isn't the grant; it's the funds. What are the funds that we got? This council.
COVID.
The COVID dollars.
Oh,
really
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
ARPA.
yeah, so that's for the railroad crossing for the Waterline. Then we have a grant for the pedestrian crossing for the railroad tracks, which had to occur before we could use the grant for the other 2 sides of the railroad tracks. And then we have a grant on the other side of the railroad tracks. So,
We put a sewer line through there too, or just water?
just water. I wonder if our sewer line's already in there. Oh, we're replacing the sewer line with the COVID dollars on West Scott Avenue as well. So there's asbestos sewer line in there. We're replacing that. Yeah. Okay. And then this is the one that I was talking to you about. So we're doing the Waterline crossing right now. Now we're going to do a pedestrian crossing on the tracks next. Again, grant. Then we have the West Scott Avenue Waterline crossing that's going on right now. Davidson will go on right after we finish this month we finished the West Scott Avenue, so we're going to increase the Davidson water line. And that was grant as well.
And the importance of that to get water to the industrial.
Well, yeah,
To
and
circulate
the
the
importance
system.
of it is Aaron Thoney has been in council for over 10 years, so we're finally doing it.
Make Aaron Tony happy finally?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is how come it hasn't happened before that?
Right.
It took me 2 years to get the BNSF railroad permit.
Yeah.
2 years. You know? So anyway. And then we have our Lift Station 8 project. This is actually part of our utility funds that come in. This will be this is what we're using it on. In addition to the 1.5 million gallon reservoir that we're going to be working on. Okay. All right. Now, what kind of questions do you have? How much time did I take?
Oh, too much.
No.
You are over by 5 minutes.
There-
Plus they took 11 from you, so you're 6 plus.
Yeah, thank you. There you go.
I feel like it took forever.
You weren't even here. All right, so this is just some pictures of some public works. We have public works luncheons and for if somebody has like that was Dennis's retirement party, and the one above was our Christmas party. We always play a game of cornhole during our Christmas party, and I come that close to winning every single year, and I never win. I'm going to win next year. So anyway, so do you guys have any questions? I just wanted to tell you that our department rocks because of the support, and not only from you guys, but from the other departments. And I want to thank you guys for that. I really appreciate it. Nope. You
We
don't.
got the reservoir $1.5 million.
Though we have a current 1 million gallon, we have a current 500,000 gallon, we're gonna go to 1.5 million additional.
Because one has to be decommissioned.
Yes.
Yeah, but I was saying, so do we do a kind of study future while paying the half?
It already is. It,
So that'll
considers
cover
future.
us for
Yes.
that's good.
20-year plan, yes.
That's all to hear. Good deal.
Yeah, so when we did that study, they do when we did the utility rate study, we figured out what size do we need, and we figured out it was 1 million. And that was based on our capital plan, which is done by an engineering review. And it has to get reviewed by the Department of Health. So that's all been reviewed. Since we're decommissioning, the 500,000 will go to 1.5 million. And that gets us 20 years down the road.
Good. Then it would be like the high school, be like, hey, we built it, now it's too small. What do you mean?
It was just constructed, yeah.
Yes.
No, well, we're good.
We're good for a while.
And you gotta remember too, we only have so much water rights.
Yes.
So, any other questions?
I had a question. So, the part where you mentioned the parking lot here getting seal coated,
Yes.
so that'll be,
Yeah.
so that'll be over the summer, right? Because those
Um,
guys
it's-
work in the
It's
summer.
actually going to happen, we have it slated for completion by June. It just has to be dry weather. 3 days
For
dry
Father's
weather.
Day?
Huh?
For Father's Day, then?
I don't know if it's before Father's Day, we said June, so June 30th.
That'd be after.
Yeah.
I just know those guys usually work from, like, they do the hot parts of the state early, and then
Early.
we do, and then they're out here in the summer. Just
Yeah. Well, and so they bid on it last year, but it started raining too much and we weren't able to squeeze it in, so we pulled it this year.
Gotcha.
So, and if they come back and say, hey, we can't do it until July, we get no bids, we put it out to bid again. So,
Gotcha. And then what other so this parking lot, and then what other parking lots do we have?
the City Hall staff parking, which is across from Spruce, and then also in between the Moose Lodge and,
The public parking. Right?
Yeah.
the public parking by
Towards
between Moose
Zumstein.
Lodge
Oh,
and,
yeah, in between, going to Zumstein and
But
stuff.
yeah,
Hair
insurance.
salon and stuff.
Is it behind Moose Lodge there?
No, it's
Right beside,
beside.
in between.
Woodland Real Estate in the center.
Woodland Real
Yeah,
Estate,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Okay,
Moose
yeah.
Lodge.
Yeah.
So that's another one, and then we also own parking back behind Moose Lodge.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I'll have to look at that one.
So I was thinking, we don't really have parking lots. We have gravel.
Oh, we actually do have parking lots though. Those are actually asphalt,
Gotcha.
yeah. Any questions?
I do.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Your time's up.
So can you speak to some of the, first of all, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for a great presentation. And can you, with as little folks as you have, so thank you.
I have little focus?
No,
No.
as little folks.
Oh,
employees.
focus. Okay, so I have a little focus.
Little minions.
Yeah,
No,
later.
I actually
Later.
don't drive a focus, but
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going.
What challenges, let's talk about challenges, because that's going to end up coming when I speak to council, some of the challenges that you have right now. Obviously, budget. I mean, I think you do a great job with the budget and
You
being
have
able
to,
to
yeah.
put our dollars to work, so thank you.
Yep.
But moving forward, what do you see as the challenge for the city and your department?
So unlike the police chief, I will draw from anybody and everybody and still from any department that I can. because it's all about me. So,
Take
you know,
notes,
as you
Chief,
know,
take
so with that being said,
She could take my job.
yeah,
No.
no, I couldn't
No.
do your job. So, for me, it's staff, having the manpower to get done what we need to get done. I am super appreciative that when I first came on board, everybody realized that. They were able to give me 2 employees that I was able to hire. And unfortunately, due to COVID and the restrictions with the income of our revenue stream, that we had to lay those 2 individuals off, which is fine. But that kind of set us back in. So you feel like you wind up that toy and you wind it up and it gets going, then all of a sudden, and then you come to a stop. Then you have to sit there and then somebody has to wind it up again. So now we're at the wind and we're starting to go, and I'm just hoping we don't get the employees taken away again. I know that is no control of anybody here. It's all control over our revenue stream and our tax-based dollars. So for me, it's making sure that we have a very, very low salary grid for entry level. I mean, we're paying entry level laborers $20 an hour. I mean, you know, a manager, and I always hate to use this analogy, but a manager at McDonald's makes a whole hell of a lot more than that. Or you could work at Walmart, or you could work at Safeway, just doing checkout line and make a whole hell of a lot more than
And
that.
they're union.
And they're union.
Yeah.
And you have people that were hiring contractors who were paid prevailing wages for to do that to do work. Like you look at the amount of money that the guys that are making doing the siding on the community center, and yet in order to save money, because we have to pay prevailing wages, in order to
Not
save
that there's
money.
anything wrong with that.
So there is nothing wrong with that as long as we're making it as well.
Right.
So,
Which we're not.
So yeah, and I'm going to talk about something else too, and this isn't, it has to do directly with me, but I just want to talk about it as well. So you have, I'm trying to keep our costs down as much as possible for our projects. So for me to have staff that I can put our guys in to do it, since we're already paying them, it not only gives them something to do, which we have plenty to do, but it gives them a new skill to learn. So I had our staff go and tear off all the siding of the building at the community center. I'm also having us tear off the roof. That saves us a lot of labor
Yes, it
costs.
does.
You know,
Yes.
so that you're looking at 50%. So the next closest bid that we had come in, yeah, and when that we had come in was $100,000 more than the lowest bid.
It's crazy. And it's
Yeah.
such a small building.
It's such a small building. So, I mean, for us to get this done, and we are going to have a change order come in because when the guys went out and measured, they measured the wrong material. I should have double checked. But I went with it. So anyway, so we're going to have a change order come in for another $4,000 because they use more materials. They have a material list. I've been out there. I've measured that. I know they're right. But you asked for the challenge. The challenge is getting people here that are young enough, that live in Woodland, so they have an easy commute, to be able to work in our city and want to work in our city because we're competitive in our salary range. And I know that you guys came through and said, okay, with the union negotiations that I talked with Pete, you know, you're giving them 4%, which is great. I mean, you look at what the garbage, they came through at 4.7% for our garbage rate increase with their cost of living. We have other municipalities that I found in other private sectors. Some of them in the food industry, I know this because my brother is pretty high up in the food industry, I'll just say that. They got 7%, you know. So you look at the gas prices, $5.50 a gallon for diesel, you know, almost $5 a gallon for premium unleaded or whatever. I don't know if you use that, but I'm just saying that $5 a gallon. How much is that? 30 cents a mile. If you're getting, you know, 13 miles a gallon or whatever, like my car does, it gets nothing.
How does that impact our budget now, moving forward?
Well,
Was
so
that
look at
something
our.
what aren't we going to get now because we have to put it into
Okay, so
that type of thing?
I looked at when I go through and I approve the invoices, I just looked at our invoices and I'm like, oh my gosh, my gas invoices that I'm approving it's usually in the $300 to $500 range. It was like $1,200 one month. I'm like, what? And that was when we were doing snow plowing and stuff. $1,200. That's nearly that's over double. You know. So, but you got to remember, if you want good employees and you want to keep people here, you have to have the salary to keep them here. I'm not saying break the bank, but you have to have the salary to keep them here. So, and I'm just going to say this, and I'm probably stepping out of bounds here, and I don't want you to think that I'm paid too low. I don't want you to think that, but I'm going to say this. When you give the union workers a 4% raise, and then you sit there and you don't give the administrators that equal raise, what happens is you start to tighten that gap. Your supervisor should make more than an employee. So when and maybe you don't agree with that, this is my opinion only. But when you come to work and you have a superintendent or a laborer that's making more than your supervisor, I don't think that's a good gig. So people are going to leave. I'm not leaving. I'm staying here till retirement. I'm just telling you that, unless somebody fires me.
No more raises.
But I'm just saying. But I am saying you need to consider that. So when you want to, and it's not just the labor force, it's the people who drive the labor force, right? Because if you don't have that person behind them that's going to back them up and make them feel like they want to be here, then and you don't have a good supervisor, they're not going to want to be here anyway. So, and I think we have a really good staff, and I'm not saying that for a raise. I'm just telling you that you asked the challenges. You know, when I leave, when I retire, you're going to have that challenge when you're hiring in at that rate that the superintendent's making more, the labor, well, nobody's going to want to come here. So I want you just to be aware of that. I will tell you too, and I told the chief I was going to touch on this. We have a really cool art project that we're moving forward with, and if you guys have been to 100 Davidson, there's a jail cell doors that were in there at 100 Davidson. Do you guys remember going in there seeing the jail cell doors?
I don't remember seeing the jail, no.
Yeah, so there was a jail, he has pictures, but he'll pass around. But anyway, so he had a retired police officer that is actually, we Public Works removed the jail cell doors. We gave them to them. They're actually, they modified it so it's going to be standing up like artwork. And we're going to put it out here so you can see through the jail cell doors.
For the photo op?
Yeah, for a photo opportunity.
That's
So
awesome.
we're going to be doing that. Yeah. So we're going to be doing that this year for a project, the joint project, which I'm pretty excited about.
Supposed to be done like before Father's Day.
We're shooting for that. He's completely, so the officer that's doing that is our retired reserve officer, Rudy Fedora. And Rudy took it upon himself to work with the association to take the old jail cell out, the doors out, and put it out. And the plan is to put it out front, right by the Woodland PD sign, so that when people see it, they're gonna, you can take a photo op and have the jail cell there and see the Woodland PD right behind it. So we're working together to try to see if there's a way that we can make sure that it's going to be secure.
Nobody can hook up to it with a truck.
Nobody can hook up to it.
I got a game plan.
So
your bumper will come off first.
We've talked about it, but that corner right by that whole grass area right there, we're gonna probably turn that into a sidewalk so people can walk around it and not be,
take a photo
and make sure that Rudy and the association get credit for this art project, because I think it's a huge piece of our history. Because I used to, when I wore a different shade of blue, I used to use the facility over there to process intoxicated drivers, and we'd put them in that while we were waiting for their ride or to transport to jail. So yeah,
well, and when I give you a tour,
there's a lot of history
of Public Works. You know, if you want to go over there and see where that jail cell door came from, I can take you over there and show you that too. So if you want to know that. Sure. So anyway, that's the challenges. I think the challenges for me is, having enough money to, I've been here, this is going to be 5 years in November. I'm so excited. Wow. Yeah, I know. That's crazy. It's pretty scary. I haven't got done what I wanted to, but I'm working on it. So, but if you think about it, it's taken over 4 years to get enough money in the budget to change out half our streetlights. To me, that's discouraging. There's nothing you can do about it. There's only so much tax base. There's only so much revenue. So it's discouraging in some way, but it's kind of exciting in another because at least we got it done, right? So, and again, that's our labor force. If you were to pay somebody to come and change it out, it would have been 3 times sooner. So I just get a little discouraged with that, but I also have to realize that we're in a very small community. We have a small tax base, and everything that I have asked for as a Public Works Director, you guys have given me, and I appreciate that. So I'm not complaining, but you just asked about the struggles, right? And so that's just what I'm sharing with you. It doesn't mean that there's anything you can necessarily might be able to do about it, but those are the struggles. But we went out and tried to find water plant operators, like the chief of police was saying, I can't find police source. So I told you I sent out 100. How many emails did I sent out? 500 emails. I pulled up the list from the state of Washington. I sent an email out to every single operator asking them to apply for this job. Now we got 2 great operators here, right? So my goal is get enough people here and offer them the salary to keep them here, so when I leave, we at least have a crew that can run itself, and you don't have to worry about bringing somebody in to train or whatever. It's already trained. Cross-training is huge, doing the same thing, making sure people get water hours, sewer hours, so on and so forth, so they can go and fill up at the plant. Because if you think about our operators work every other weekend the entire year. Every other weekend. So they're not just working, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, but they're getting paid for it, don't get me wrong. But that's still tiring every other weekend.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you only have 2 people, you got to keep the water going, you got to keep the toilets flushing. So, anyway, yeah.
How many people we got with the certification?
Of what? Okay. So at our water plant, we have 3 operators. One's our sewer plant operator. So you have the both superintendents have 3s to be able to run the water plant. The sewer plant I only have 1. Okay, so I have another guy that has a 2 that's working towards his 3 that I just hired, So he'll be able to back up Derek. So then I'll have 2 for the sewer, 2 for the water. And I have a couple that have their 2s that I'm going to work on, or they're 1s that I'm working on getting their 2s and their 3s.
I just forwarded you an email. We'll have to talk. It's right now, I noticed in the grant cycle, everybody's into ending generational poverty and how that looks with jobs, right? So grants available are
For income?
for employment training and
Oh,
that kind of.
anything you have for that?
So I just said,
Yeah.
so yeah, we can, outside of this, in a different portion of my life, we could collaborate maybe on, because I know you have Public Works and the Parks Department. The Parks Department, you like need help in the summer and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But yeah, 2 different things, weirdly enough, 2 popped up in the same week, and that's what they're focused on is employment and ending generational poverty. And a city gig is a good gig to get to end generational poverty.
Yeah, but you have to realize too that, so anytime we send, so this is great, and I've already, there's a group that I was working with that said that they do the training if we offer the facility for them to train in, they'll do the training, but they didn't offer any type of substance abuse, assistance in salary, so that means we still have to cover that salary, we still have to cover their benefits and their salary. They said, we'll give them the training, but what you have to realize is when somebody is in training, like right now, we have another problem we're running into. So we have a lot of Class B CDLs, right? Well, now for us to pull our tractor and to drive our bucket truck and whatever, we need Class A, okay? Class A is a minimum of $5,000 to $10,000, $5,000 minimum, $10,000 maximum, to send our guys for training. If they've never had the training, 4 weeks. You're paying the salary, you're paying the stuff, and they're off the crew. And you're also paying $10,000. If they have a Class B, I have to send them for 2 weeks. So now I've lost that person for 2 weeks. I have to have at least 3 guys with A's. So right now, if you look at that, if I have 1 guy that hasn't done it, there's a month out, and I've got another 2 guys for 2 weeks. I have 2 months where I've lost 2 people just for training. And I'm taking $10,000, $10,000, $20,000, $25,000 out of the budget, $25,000 for training, and I'm paying them their salaries. And I don't have anybody.
Is that a one-time training?
It's until they have to get another one. Class A is about how they can go, but they do have to renew their CDL every so many years, and they still have to do their physicals and all that. So yeah. Exactly. So that's a great point. Thank you. So you give them their CDL, Class A, and you don't pay them enough, what's going to happen? See you later. So I talked to Pete about this, that one of the things we want to do is if we hire new hires and we give them this training, have them sign a contract to say, if you leave, you have to reimburse your training out of your last paycheck up to so many dollars.
Nice.
We don't want to train them.
No.
And then they leave.
have
We're a
leave.
stepping stone, we're just doing training for everything.
Exactly.
More than one facility.
Yeah, but then the next guy gets the benefit because they're going at a higher salary and they already got the guy, and then I'll pay for the training.
What's the legality on that?
What's the what?
The legality on that, as far as you train them and
No.
they leave?
Well, if you don't have a contract signed, there's nothing.
Yeah.
But if we haven't signed a contract when they're new hires, then we can do that. So when I send the guys to the CDL for their Class A, that's something we're going to have to sign. I'm going to give you your Class A, but you can't leave. And if you leave within a 2-year period, you have to sign something within a 2-year period, then you need to pay us back.
We did the same thing when we were doing bonuses for the police department as well.
Yeah.
That was a requirement.
So,
It stayed a certain
that's a
amount
way
of
to
time.
protect the city.
Yep.
So, and I'm not saying that we have the worst salaries out there by any means. I'm not saying that, so don't take it that way. I'm just saying that we have to make sure, and we don't need to keep up with the Joneses, especially if they live in Woodland, because it's a 5-minute commute,
Right.
right? But if they're commuting from outside and they can go to a bigger city, and some people don't want to do that, but if they can, why not go to a bigger city? So. Okay, so I'm going to get in trouble
That was almost
from
an
these
hour.
guys over there. I
That was
know.
almost an hour.
Okay, what else you got, Mayor?
No, I'm gonna stop.
All right.
I'll stop.
All right. Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Ms.
Tracy.
Tracy.
Gina, do you want to go, or Travis, do you want to go? Who's up?
I'll go last.
You go last. Okay.
Where do I pick it up, Mr. Mayor?
Just at the
Deli counter?
yeah, deli counter. You can probably pay there too. If you want my card.
I got it.
You have your card with you. Okay.
Do Did you get a copy? Did you get a copy of the third grant?
Oh, don't be the dog.
And I will send out my PowerPoint to you guys, or if you want, I can print it out in black and white. You want it in black and white? And I'll leave it at
I'd
you want me to put it in your guys' box?
Yes.
I'll do that.
Please.
Full color.
No.
No, black and white, right?
Oh, let me tell you something. So
You started it.
now let me tell you something. I asked because my former assistant is in that entity for a department in Oregon State, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, so what do you pay for color copies? Okay. And I wrote this down, or I think there's like 40 some odd color photocopiers or 18 photocopiers, something like that. Anyway, they're paying the same as we are.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I don't even know what the port pays. I just hit color every time I print.
Oh, God.
It's crucial to my job to know what color stuff is.
Especially on the wire.
I think it came out to 18 cents for the chamber to do it.
But I did ask because I was interested in, hey,
It is
so
expensive.
I'm like, the predatory photocopier company, what do you guys pay? And they're and so she's like, well, oh, this is what we pay. Okay, it's the same as the city. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to disclose that. But.
So I was going to print mine in black and white, but because my last slide was a map, I printed it in color, because if I printed the rest of it in black and white and printed it in color, then I would take more time to staple them together than it actually takes.
Different shades of gray.
If you print a PDF, black and white color, and you got one color picture, you're charged for the whole thing every page.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yep. Sorry, are you ready?
10:56, go.
Okay, so just a quick reminder, so in case you're wondering where this order comes from, this is Order of Seniority. So Mary Parsons, who's been around with us the longest, she's currently occupying a temporary position where she works half-time, and she was working at the front counter, and she is currently doing records cleanup and organization on the community development side after helping out up front, backfilling. So she, of course, was our code enforcement officer who was laid off because of the COVID round back in 2019. So I've been doing everything I can to try and keep her around out of loyalty, the fact that she stood with us when Mary left and the ladies out front left. And so I recognize that she may not be the most savvy and financially savvy employee, but the fact that she was here and soldiered along so loyally during that, we're doing everything we can to try and keep her employed. So she's looking forward to retirement. I think at some point she'll say enough is enough. Also Janice Fisher, who's our Clerk 3, currently acting as our Code Enforcement Officer. There's myself. And then we just hired David Bukaser as our Associate Planner. And then also I'm responsible for Amanda Hogan, and Joey Russell out front. And in response to what Tracy was just talking about, Joey's a great example of, she lives in town. And she took, I think, a pay cut to come here because she was spending like over an hour each direction going to Portland before. So for her, she gets an extra 2 hours a day to come here and work. And so there are other things that we can take advantage of. And our philosophy as the executive team is to try and find people who are local who can serve our needs. And so we're aware of that. So the next slide, so we'll start on the accomplishments, and I'll dive into these a little deeper later on. But because of kind of the reshuffling of duties and the addition of the kind of the front counter responsibilities, so we've been working on department connections, strengthening those, getting the new ladies out front, and having them try and develop customer service relationships internally with the different departments and provide support when they're in need of them in any way they can, including cross-training and helping cover meetings and taking notes and that kind of stuff, and providing web support. So we're trying to make sure that we're building that positive customer service internally as well as the customer service to the counter. One of the things I consistently point out, and that is kind of the customer service model out front, is they deal with people on a day-to-day basis. They come in, they pay a bill or submit something, and then they leave. That's the kind of 5-minute interaction. Whereas for Public Works and Community Development, the customer comes in, we see them 6 months later with a pre-application conference. 6 months later, we see the application, and then we're dealing with their contractors for the next 2 or 3 years as they do construction. So my model of customer service is kind of this long-range 2 or 3 year slog, and then of course dealing with them after they're open, answering questions and dealing with their customers. So it's really a different model, and we're trying to balance this customer service, internal customers and the external customers in the different models. So one of the things that we are extremely proud of, and that is the new website, which is our ability to provide the services online and people to be able to do their own research and find stuff. And this is a constantly evolving tool because we're now looking at trying to get all of the ordinances and resolutions so that people can look it up, not only attached to the individual agendas, but we're trying to figure out a way to get they can read their own ordinances. You can do that currently on the Unicode web page for our code, but not directly from our web page. So we're trying to figure out a way to make it easier and more customer service friendly. And as I mentioned, kind of with Mary and having the 2 new ladies out front and Janice, we're making a huge effort to try and get our records management under control. That giant room of boxes down at the old fire station, there's like 400 boxes in there. And this year alone, we managed to get 50 of them organized, and they actually got shredded last week. We've got an additional 30 boxes that have been scanned and archived and are just waiting for their 5 years or 6 years or 10 years, depending on what they are, to be taken care of. But now when you go down to that room, of the 400 boxes that are in there, about 200, well, actually probably about 280 of them now are empty. It's getting to the manageable size where we will be able to move them into City Hall, and you'll still be able to open the door, and the air conditioner will still be able to function without being blocked by boxes. So we're making good progress on that records management side. Also, a new timesheet system, our vision permitting and our financial system. We've added the timesheet module to that, and we're piloting that. We're working with Audrey so that we can try and make that a little more user-friendly, and the management side for Audrey, and trying to figure out ways to create shortcuts for like the Public Works guys who have more complex timesheets than the planner in my team. Our time is generally 2 or 3 categories, but for theirs, they might do 5 or 6 projects in a day from different funds. So we're trying to figure out how to manage that.
We're back to paper timesheets, right?
Temporarily, yes.
So we did go electronic, and it just was a nightmare.
The system we were using was kind of a stopgap measure, and it generated a ton of emails to let me know every time something had been submitted, and then Audrey got copied. And so for 45 employees, she might be getting 100 emails a week just for the timesheet system. We're also dealing with the public records requests, so they were up about 20% last year, and they look like they're up again this year. So on the public records front, the unknown factor that we're going to have to deal with this year is the body cams, and so the chief and lieutenant seem to totally be on top of that. I looked into whether or not we could appoint Lieutenant Ortiz as a second public records official for the city, because that's currently was assigned to me. We cannot, but I can designate additional employees, and so the chief and I talked about being able to delegate some responsibilities. Currently, it's the 2 clerks at the front office area are the ones who respond to all of those, and they do a great job, and I don't necessarily have to do a lot of supervision of them, but kind of part of that lieutenant position is to have somebody kind of keeping an eye on that and to manage what might potentially become a whole new machine of workload generation right there. we felt that it was better that somebody qualified and understanding of the system in the police department manage that. And we'll have to, like the chief said, we'll have to come back and take a look at whether or not that represents a whole new additional workload that we need to address with staffing. Hopefully we'll be able to figure that out once we've got some experience with it. And then, of course, the cross-training of the clerks, as I mentioned. A good example of this is when the new website was coming online, I basically farmed out each department's responsibilities to the clerks in each department, not necessarily because in the long term they're going to need to keep the website up to date, but I wanted them the opportunity to understand how it was structured and what needed to be done and what kind of things could be done. And then kind of once it went live, we kind of pulled back everybody's permissions. But now they have a good understanding of what's going on, so that if they need help, they know they can call Amanda and say, hey, I need this and this, can you put this on the website? So whereas before it was such a rickety house of cards that Lori didn't really want other people, getting in there and trying to fix stuff one at a time by themselves. She really had to do it to make sure that the house didn't fall apart. Whereas now, it's kind of this robust system where we're continuing to pump more information and more pictures and more tools into it. And each of the clerks has the understanding of how it works. Hopefully they feel empowered to come up with ideas and introduce new stuff. So, and then also Janice, the permit technician in community development, is off for this month, March. And she's also talking about potentially retiring at some point this year, and so we took the time to train both Joey and Amanda at her job so that they have the opportunity to do, we're alternating a week of coverage for each of them, and so they understand how it works and some of the other clerk duties for other departments. So we're going to continue to seek some of those cross-training opportunities. So the next slide. So accomplishments again. So the mixed-use work that we done, that's the residential and the commercial zone that we had a workshop on last week. We'll get that to you. Also the moratoriums for that, plus the marijuana retail stuff out last year. We also did a couple code enforcement actions, specifically the 20 after 4 is probably the big appeal that had some substantial traction in the community. We continue to do our permits and land review. The Cowlitz County project comments I send you whenever I kind of send out a letter as I continue to poke away at the bear for the county, continues to, the ripples of their projects continue to affect us. I continue to poke that bear, and I try and CC you all as I send those letters out so that you know that poke is coming, because at some point they're going to poke back, and I don't want you to be surprised at some dinner or community event when they start complaining that I'm continuing to poke the bear and they want me to shut up. But I want you to be aware that that's what's coming down the pipe. We also were involved with the Clark County countywide planning policies update. As a much bigger jurisdiction, they have a much more bureaucracy and documents and support or opposition of what they're doing. And one of their things is a countywide planning policy document, which would not allow Woodland to expand our urban growth boundary into Clark County. And although we have no plans for that right now, I managed to get some language inserted that would allow us at some point to start looking on the other side of the river, whether it's for expansion or infrastructure improvements and that kind of stuff. So it is there in case we ever decide to move in that direction. So it's kind of behind the scenes, but it is important because it's an option that we never had before. You didn't know you had it. You may not even know you wanted or needed it. But also we went through the housing actions effort. So we went through everything. I just haven't got the ordinance completed, but it's the discussion about duplexes on corner lots and different types of housing opportunities that we had discussed, mostly 2020, 2021. It's the grant that we got from the state. So the good news is when I get around to writing that ordinance and submitting it to the Department of Commerce, the good thing is we're going to get a big chunk of that grant that we were awarded. So that's a revenue source that we've kind of already done the work, and we're now going to see a big check for pay for those past expenses. So that's kind of our accomplishment list. And just to give you an idea, so the next slide is about the building permit activity. I produced the annual report for last year and handed it out at the council meeting earlier, so you'd have a chance to look at it. You may look at it and you may not, but you know, in case you do, it's just rough numbers. 223 building permits. That's everything from a re-roof to new windows and new houses. So residential permits was 120, but that only represents 4 new housing starts. So we only built 4 housing units in 2021. Total valuation of all those projects is $2 million. So, you know, the 4 houses, they might be 4 times 400,000, so that might be $1.6 million of that, and the other 600,000 might be the house or the window replacements, the doors, the stuff. So the valuation of the work that was completed. And that's important because when we talk about taxation for the property of the values that are going up, this gives you an idea of kind of how much you can expect to budget for in the next couple of years. Commercial and industrial permits, so 103 permits. No new commercial buildings, but we did have 2 industrial buildings, and that is the big Atlas Plumbing building and Columbia River Carbonates did a small building. But they are continuing, so those are permits for new construction, but they're continuing to work on other projects throughout the community in the industrial sector. And the valuation approved last year was $18.6 million. So all in all, we grew by about $20,000 in our valuation. That's just from new construction. So you can take a look at the quarterly report, and it compares us to 20. And eventually I'll try and get some time together to do 19, 18, 17, 16, so you can see kind of, was it a good year, was it a bad year? So you look at the no new commercial buildings, but last year we had a bunch of new commercial buildings, but no new industrial buildings. So, you know, it's, for trend analysis, it's not very useful, but it gives you an idea that we continue to grow. So the next slide is land use activity. This is another example of these numbers don't mean much. It just lets you know kind of what we're working on. The 2 appeals are probably the big one. That's Belmont RV and 20 after 4. Boundary line adjustments, so people just adjusting existing property lines, critical area permits, the pre-application conferences. So we had 13 last year, that's good. So we continue to have people who are asking about getting projects started. So that's, to me, the most important indicator of kind of what we're looking at in the future. The environmental SEPA site plans, so we had a lot of site plans come in. They're from minor to major. So we do still see some development activity on the land use side in the future. But there, of course, is no guarantee that they're not just kicking tires, and they might be kicking tires in 5 communities, and then you may not see them again. So
what's the moratorium for 2 of them?
So we updated 2 moratoriums, and they were basically for the housing, the critical or the mixed use, and then what was the other one?
Storage facilities.
No, because we fixed that. I think in 20. It may be the storage facilities. Maybe it was. I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
That one was early in the year, I think.
The
The storage facility.
It might be. Sorry, it is all running together, and I can
Just
get
like
you
the
that
acronyms.
answer. Yeah.
What are they?
Yep. Okay, so the next one is land use activities. This, I think, is important to pull out because I wanted to let you know. So we had 4 residential units constructed last year. The year before that, we had 6 units constructed, but we also had some projects where they tore down old residences, and then we had a fire where 6 units were burned down, So in 2020, we built 6 but lost 10. So we were actually -4. And then last year we built 4. So basically, population-wise, we're where we were back in 2019. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so actually we had 2 fires because there was also the one over on Gorig down there where they had small apartment buildings. So just by Daddy D's, there was a fire in that white apartment building there. Yeah. So it's just a quirk that after not having significant fire loss, we had 1 year a blip that looked magnified because we're not building anything else. And that's why this is important, is because in the last 2 years, we've had Quail Meadows, which is up Lewis River Road on the right-hand side next to the fish release facility. And then on the other side of the street behind the school is Woodland Creek subdivision, which is 150 houses. So 40 on between the river and the highway and 150 across the street. And then this year, or in 2021, we approved Oak Village Apartments, which is up Green Mountain Road. It's the last property in the city limits up Green Mountain Road, and it's 186 apartment units. We also have a couple more in review. There is Bozarth Apartments, which is tucked right up against the school property on Bozarth, and I believe it's 2nd. And it's going to be, you might hear something about that because it's 15 units. It's behind the, there's 3 apartment buildings kind of in a horseshoe on the corner of Bozarth and 2nd. Bozarth and 5th, sorry,
Right.
yes.
Oh, okay. Right.
So I thought it was the property across the street
I
from
did
those
too.
apartments.
I
So
did too.
Behind it?
So it's behind. There's
The
also
apartments.
one.
That big oak tree sets behind there.
Yeah,
right there.
so Denny Frank also has an apartments on the south side, but he hasn't pulled his building permits on that. So.
Okay, and that's at the corner of Bozarth and 5th.
Right.
Yes.
Across the street from the school. Or,
Yes.
across the street from those other apartments that burned down.
That's that empty lot.
Exactly.
Right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are 12 there, and I probably should have put them on this list, but those have been hanging around since
Since like-
2017
Yeah,
before
yeah.
I got here. So.
Okay.
It almost seems like it's attached to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So this one is behind it.
Okay.
And they're going to be adding a building, and why you may hear about this is because they are proposing a 4-story building, and they're
Lord.
asking for like an extra 4 feet of variance to allow them to get that extra floor in there. But it's 15 units, so you know it's one of those questions of it might end up being the tallest building in town, but it's tucked back in the corner against the school, and there's one house behind it, and they're working with them to get their utilities removed. And so,
Are they tearing the house down or keeping the house?
no, they're keeping the house.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they're just rerouting their utilities for them, and they're going to make improvements to the street frontage on 5th and Bozarth. And
Okay.
so
it'll
it's,
be sidewalks all the way down to the school then at that point.
Yes, if they're doing development, there will be sidewalks there.
On
So
the,
might be-
on the driveway for the school.
So yeah, so we'll take a
Okay.
look at that. And
Gotcha.
so this is early in that review, so we'll make that determination. But
Good.
okay. The reason why I bring it up is because it's going to 4 stories, and so people might be freaking out because it looks super tall. But considering it's kind of in the back of the neighborhood as opposed to in the front of the
My
neighborhood.
concern is as long as
Yeah.
the fire
Yeah,
department
does the
signs
fire
off on
department?
it, stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it still has to, do we have the does Clark County Fire and Rescue have the equipment to battle a blaze? and
So
something
they'll
like
be
that?
looking at that. It's
Oh,
a, it's
okay.
a, it's a
Almost
small
like-
enough structure and
like
it's
good.
closest to the street that they'll still be able to get it with
Okay.
fire hydrants and hoses.
Gotcha.
So. And then the other one is Logan's Landing. This is the project that is at the south end of Franklin and with the back entrance that comes out between Ronnie Sargent's lot, yeah, off the Belmont Loop. And so they're proposing 405 units. And this one is a significant, I mean, it's like potentially 15, 17, 18% of the city population on one site that's currently zoned commercial. This is part of the reason why we're going through the mixed-use process, but.
Just because of this project?
Well, there were several projects that brought it up, but this
Okay.
one's a great example of They would have a path forward under the new code. They would just have to make adjustments. They probably wouldn't be able to get 405 units, but they could do it if they have the ground floor commercial, if it's constructed so that we can get multiple tenants in the ground floor, and they have connections to to residential neighborhoods and recreational opportunities, rather than just dumping these 1,000 tenants in Belmont Loop and the kids can't walk anywhere, or they can't get to any other part of town without, running across Old Civic Highway or exit 22 or so. So the new code will address this issue, but the new code was also based upon trying to generate additional uses downtown. It's addressing our Kirkland Senior Living Center, and we were looking at extended stay hotels and other locations. So I think there were 5 projects that kind of all came in at the same time that prompted us to go down this menu. They just are the only ones that might have a toehold in the door that would allow them to proceed. And so in this one, you're probably going to hear about it because I've issued a determination of significance on it, meaning that I want them to prepare an environmental impact statement to take a look at. Because these units it represents like 66% of our total projected 20-year growth in multifamily dwellings on a commercial property. Yeah. At the back of Belmont Loop with nowhere to go, and so in context, it's a significant project. And their attorney, has rightly made the argument that, 400 units, it's not that big of a deal. In Clark County, in Vancouver, they review them all the time. Yes, but in Woodland, it's 20% of our population, and it's 100% of our projection for growth over 20 years. We're only 6 years into our plan. And so I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying they need to do the research to show that they're not going to have negative impact. If you're talking to the chief, he's got 2 empty spots, and you add 20% of the population to the city on a site where kids have nothing to do but get in trouble.
And exit 21.
Yes, and exit 22 because they're...
And Tracy the same way, because how many more fire streets will that add for public works to have to maintain?
Yes. Yeah, so they have a lot of issues that they need to address. The problem, of course, is this is what might be considered a normal project in other jurisdictions, and we are making them go above and beyond and do an environmental impact statement. Whereas if they had waited 6 months, they might not have to because they have to meet the new code. But if you're a developer and you're looking at a 405 unit project that might go to 300 units, and we're going to make you pay for millions of dollars worth of improvements, the financial model doesn't work. But this is a commercial property, not a residential property, so...
Is this where the RV park was going to go?
No.
It's not. It's
No.
back in there.
And the RV park was one of the other ones that brought up the residential and the commercial property.
Right.
So yes, so those people who were there for that are now going to be faced with, well, that was, 80-something RV. Now you're talking about 400 units, and the kids down there farting around in the neighborhood, stealing catalytic converters, and yeah. So there's issues associated with that. So I wanted to make sure you're aware that I'm aware and working on that. But legally, we'll do what we can to try and manage that. But
We were asking about the fire truck before. We supposedly, it was CRC bought a fire truck for us.
We just sold one.
Because we had to have that for CRC.
And I think all that stuff has been phased out, but I do believe
But
that
we
Clark
still
County
have
has a...
still have the requirements over that high.
Yes.
Well, I think we have a ladder truck at that station too. Now that I'm thinking about
Yeah,
it.
they strategically placed it right here because it's the best strategic place for it is right here.
yeah, and the issue in that case isn't that we don't have the equipment. The issue is, do we have a place for the fire truck to be able to put the ladder up on the roof and get the firefighters on the roof? Yeah. So we're going to be addressing that, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. They're not directly on the corner, but they're within the ladder range. So yeah. So in the pre-application conference, we throw all of that stuff out there. So they're making good decisions on their design. So the work plan. So retooling our code, that's kind of the name that I've given to the program, of keeping track of the codes issues, the little fixes that need to be done. There's 102 items on that list, and some of the big ones are down below. Also, we need to finish the housing grant. There's also going to be an annexation request this year. So if you're familiar with the Green Mountain Road and that little red barn and that property that had a bunch of junk on it, they've made a lot of effort to clean up that property, and they're doing that in preparation for requesting annexation to the city so that they can get their residential designation, so they can build some houses and some apartments. So I think what they're...
There's more houses and more
In the
apartments.
same
Yes.
intersection as this one.
Yes, only it's on residential property, so it's covered by our
Right,
plan, and
right.
so, yeah, so...
Wasn't there a problem getting water up that far?
Well, so that's one of the issues they're gonna have to solve, yes. Yeah, so, that's why I bring this up, is because it's one of those situations where they're working in the county right now, but they're doing it so that they can come to us, so that you can see the property instead of being hidden behind all the barn. They put a driveway up the street. I think their idea is they want to put some nice apartments up on that bluff overlooking the valley. And then down below, I think they're going to have some single-family homes off of Green Mountain Road. So they're going to do a mix of uses. But they're basically getting it all cleaned up under the county ordinances so that they can do a proposal that is attractive to you when they come and ask for annexation, because they're going to want the water, but they're going to have to solve their own problems. They got to design the solutions. We've already discussed the problems. And then the urban growth area expansion discussion. We at some point are going to have to submit an application to the county to expand the urban growth boundary. We have been laying the groundwork for this for years. And that's part of the reason why I continue to poke the bear and point out that, they're screwing us, because at some point we're going to stand up and say, okay, we are requesting an urban growth expansion. And we recently did a big poke in the eye with the Aho request south of the city, and we actually went to their planning commission and kind of threw them collectively under the bus, because it's their own bus, and the planning commission was really heard what we had to say, and they appreciated the fact that they didn't know a lot of this issue, because it's being kind of discussed with the county and the staff, but not necessarily with the planning commission. And so in that sense, the poking might be more and more annoying to the elected officials and the staff, but at some point we're going to have to make an ask. There's also another issue, and that is a flood map adoption. So we have a gentleman who lives upriver. He is a professional hydrogeologist, and he took it on himself for some project to kind of do an in-depth model of the Lewis River flood area that is kind of in Woodland and a little north and a little basically down to about, it looks like about the roundabout. And so he's got a lot of really great information that is more accurate than kind of the generic model that FEMA had prepared decades and decades ago. So it has some implications for us to be able to provide better customer service, but it won't really affect our floodplain level or our floodplain issues, because floodplain itself isn't going to change. The map, the boundaries of where the flood water isn't going to go, doesn't matter all that much. I just now have more accurate information for where the flood level will be if we flood, which means that as people put in new air conditioning units, instead of being elevated 18 inches off the ground, it might be 23 inches off the ground, but the more protection we can give, the better off we are. And the reason why I'm bringing this to you is he now has all of this information. We've got a much better map. I just can't use it because FEMA hasn't adopted it. Well, he is going through the process of getting FEMA to update their maps, so they'll have better information. what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to ask the question, and that is, does the city want to adopt the new FEMA map, or do we want to continue to use the 2016 FEMA map? It doesn't have a significant difference, but I don't want to make the assumption that, yeah, because better scientific information is available, you know, that extra 3 inches might mean that people don't have enough clearance in their garage to put in a new water heater. So there are drawbacks. I don't imagine that they're significant, but we're going to have to have that conversation because flood affects everybody on that side of town, and if they're already inflamed and angry, I just want you to be aware that this information is coming.
Whatever doesn't increase my flood insurance.
No. Well, yeah, theoretically, no, it should not.
I brought that up to them.
Yeah.
And then the other one is there's a city map fix that we need to, and I have a couple shots of that to give you an idea. Comp plan update, we're going to need to do our scheduled 5-year comp plan. I think it's supposed to be 2022, might be 2023, but we haven't laid a lot of that groundwork to get that set up and done internally. If we could find some money to do a comp plan update with a consultant.
Cost? I don't remember. That's a lot.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it could be 20, it could be 50, it could be 70.
I want to say it's upper towards
It depends
70.
on what we want to do. Yes. So when I first got here, we went through a huge effort to go out and kind of talk about comp plan and that, if you remember that. So that took a couple years, and it took a lot of time and effort, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Only at that point, it was focused on these applications that came in and some of those large discussions. So a generic discussion about direction of the city, I don't know whether that would take more time or less time, and would I be able to give it the effort that it needs? Frankly, I don't know that I would, given
I think we
everything
hired
else
an
that's going
outside
on.
consultant with that one.
It was the guy from Ridgefield.
Yeah, for
Yes.
the 2016.
And so they, specifically, I remember this, it was like modeled after Ridgefield and what Ridgefield was doing and yada yada. And what's interesting is that it was all based on Clark County Clark County stuff, whereas Cowlitz, the bulk of us are in Cowlitz.
Yeah.
And it doesn't pertain to Cowlitz.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, and so and this is so closely tied with the master plan discussion of the bottoms. The good news is the port is extremely interested in this, and the county is starting to come around. There's a lot of understanding, and then in the last few years, as we continue to poke the bear, people are a lot more aware of the implications. And I get people in my office all the time saying, you know, I live in the bottoms, I live right behind the storage unit. What's going on with Wise Benno being allowed to add all those homes, and what's going on with Aho? And my answer is, well, you told me not to get involved because the county wants to do its thing. And
don't be upset by
yeah.
getting the thing you asked for.
Yes, so that echo is starting to come back with us, and why aren't you doing anything? Well, that's the exact point we're trying to make.
If we'd have annexed them in, though, there would be a lot more houses than what Benno's got out there right now. So it would have impacted us a lot more than what is happening right now.
Yes, well, that's part of it. And one of the things that I explained to them, and that is under growth management, we have a finite amount of expectation how many houses we can build. And you're right, Aho may have built 100 houses out there, but they may be tapped out until 3 years from now when they can build their next 100, because we can only grow so fast, and it's like this 400 units on the commercial property. I can't tell you there's water and sewer capacity for that property for 400 units. I can tell you that we expect to have another 1,200 units in the next 20 years, but all of them this year on a commercial property, I can't tell you that.
Right.
That's part of what growth management is going to require us to do. And this gets back to the issue Tracy is talking about, all these crazy pump station and lift station improvements. If we expand south of the city and we put a new line under I-5 and come at the wastewater plant from a whole new direction, none of those lift stations will have to work as hard, because all of the new growth might have a new path to get there. And we might even be able to take, the Strawberry Flats neighborhood and down like where the mayor used to live. If we could route them through a new pipe, all of a sudden everybody on the north side of town, this side of town, there's more capacity. So we have less pressure and less expensive to fix, upgrade pump stations that no longer need it, because we have this new pipe that adds 100% capacity because it's empty, as opposed to, you spend $700,000 to upgrade a lift station and you get 30% extra capacity because the pipe is still full of crap. Just because you're pumping it faster doesn't. So yeah, and that's kind of the issues that we are starting to get to. We need to update comp plan, sewer plan, water plan, capital facilities plans, and so we're aware of that, and that's kind of why on the work plan I finished with these with the dollar signs with questions, because frankly there's a lot of unknowns. And but the good news is now the port and the school district are completely on board, and they encourage us to poke the bear as often as they can, because they're on the other side poking the bear from a different direction. So because we're starting to really coalesce and come together, which is kind of the effort why I put you through all that hell in 2018 and had to sit through those meetings. And then there's city limit issues. That's the mapping, and I'll get to that in a minute. Retooling our code. So these are some of those items that I was talking about. The ag zoning, which will come before you. Special event code, flood map revision. Really, we kind of need a code rewrite discussion. Thought I had a little more detail. So when I talk about code rewrite, there are, on the development side, there are essentially three types of development code. There's use code, like what goes on in a building or on a property. There is a physical development code, like what does the building look like, how are the streets built, water and sewer lines, so the physical improvements on the property. And then the third type is process. And right now our code is totally commingled, so that when you look in one section, it'll tell you you'll do this type of application and you can only use it for this type of use, and it has to look like this, all in one section. And then you go to another section and it's all about process. And then you go to a different part of the code and it's got a totally different process for a different type of use. So I've got all of these process and deadlines that conflict, and they're in different parts of the code. So when someone comes in at the front counter, I say, oh yeah, that'll be easy, and you'll have to do this and this type of application, and it'll take 21 days. And then you have to do this type of application, it'll take 66 days. And then you take this kind of application, and it requires an extra 2 weeks of notice that the other ones don't. So it's kind of totally schizophrenic, multiple personalities. Whereas it's a lot easier if we were to rewrite the code and reorganize it. You have your zoning, which says what kind of uses can you do in a residential district, and what kind of uses can you do in a commercial district, and what kind of uses can you do in an industrial district. Then we'll have a totally different section that says, what do those buildings have to look like? What does your landscaping have to look like? What does your road landscaping have to look like? So those are physical standards. Regardless of what's in the building, it needs to look attractive, and it needs to have frontage improvements, and it needs to have the physical improvements for water and sewer to make it work. Whether it's industrial, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, it doesn't matter. You have these physical characteristics. So when I talk about rewrite, it's organization and rewrite. We also have sign code that we need to update. There's a land use Supreme Court decision that came out and talked about sign codes cannot regulate content. So the freedom of speech means you can put whatever you want on the sign. So whether it's election signs, whether it's offensive signs that piss people off, we can't regulate that. What we can regulate is how many signs do they have on the property? How long do they stay on the property? So banners, how long can you put a banner out? Can you
put a permanent banner out that says grand opening and have it there for 20 years, right?
Good
So,
business.
yeah. So our code needs to be adjusted to figure out, to make that a little more clear. And then also the recent addition that was added to this, and that is the ATVs, the all-terrain vehicles, and then other stuff. So,
Golf carts.
yeah. So all this stuff keeps getting added to that list of 102 units. And how important is it? Do you want me to put off the comp plan discussion with Powell County so that we can do signs and ATVs, or that's kind of what we consistently wrestle with at our executive team meeting with the mayor. So if you have stuff that needs to go on this list, you just let me know, and then ultimately I bring it up with the executive team, and they kind of tell me what they want me to work on next.
You have a cyclone committee?
We do not, but we're gonna.
There was three of us.
We're gonna need to have that discussion.
There used to be one.
And as far as I know, there's no code for that, but it may be something that we constitute. Have that
We did have one.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. And then this last slide, I think, is an illustration. Carla, could you give me the next? Oh, okay, sorry, I guess there are more challenges. So the exit 20.
You have all the challenges.
Yeah, sorry. So the exit 20 third bridge discussion. So the Council of Government did a study about whether or not we should proceed with looking at a third access to the bottoms, maybe at the end of Pekin Road going into Clark County. It would get us access to another I-5 access point. So that's kind of out there. It hasn't gotten much traction yet, but we're working on that. Scott Hill Park is coming, the urban growth area expansion, comp plan update, master plan for the bottoms, exit 21, trying to get that to happen. Stormwater issues. So I continue to struggle with this because we are the majority, well, I shouldn't say that. Well, physically the majority of the city is in Diking District number 2. Although the majority of the population is not in the Diking District and is subject to flood pressures. So we kind of have these two constituencies, and we recently adopted the stormwater utility. Mm-hmm. And I know that you wrestled with charging people for that, and it's a new source of revenue for the city, but it's also a new expense for the homeowners and the property owners. And I was talking to Tracy the other day, and Tracy?
Oh, she's out there.
I heard that I was talking to Tracy the other day.
Yes.
I can hear out here.
So you might want to be here for this conversation.
Okay, is he talking live?
Talking stormwaters in Diking District.
Oh, yeah. I don't
Okay.
agree with anything he has to say.
Okay, yeah.
I'm teasing,
Yes.
I'm teasing.
Yeah. I've never enjoyed working with somebody that I disagree with about everything.
More.
Yes. So the problem, of course, is if you're in the Diking District, they maintain the dike and they essentially create a bathtub. And their job is to maintain the dike and theoretically pump the water out of the bathtub. But we are also wrestling with our stormwater responsibilities. So this infrastructure utility that they created is to help Tracy take care of our stormwater infrastructure. And so we were using Darlene Johnson's property as an example, and that is we're going to start charging her because her trucks come out onto the street and her property runs into the street and goes into a catch basin that she maintains. But at the same time, Darlene's properties are paying hundreds, more than $1,000 a year into the Diking District. So the question is, well, is her water going into our utility that Tracy's taking care of, or is it the Diking District supposed to take care of it? And if the Diking District's supposed to take care of it, and they're not, why are we paying them all this money? And we have this kind of fundamental disconnect that, you know, Exit 22 is always flooding, and they corrected that problem with Diking District money. But when you actually look at it, that water isn't from the Diking District. It comes out of the hills down Green Mountain Road, Burris Creek under the creek, and then it floods Exit 22. So the Diking District took upon themselves to fix that problem, but they didn't fix Diking District water. They fixed Cowlitz County water, And so again, why are we paying for this infrastructure so that they're fixing Calumet County problems?
Have they totally fixed it where it does not flood now?
I don't know. I
No.
have no, that's why
I
it's on
didn't
my
think
list.
so.
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
That's why it's on my list, because I am totally freaking out, because now we're starting to get Belmont Loop developing,
Right.
which means all that water infiltration is gonna go away and turn into pavement, and we're gonna dump it into the system
Right.
at that intersection, and they're gonna start being pissed off at us for flooding exit 22. Well, no, we're dumping it into a diking district infrastructure. Well, no, that diking district infrastructure isn't geared to handle it, and so I have this fundamental problem. And Tracy is like, no, the stormwater system, we handle our stuff, we're taking care of our stuff, we've got this funding coming, she'll continue to be able to do her job. And I fundamentally ask the question of, well, why are you taking care of it?
Right.
You know, and she's like, well, in public works, that's what we do. Yes, well, we need to have
The
this.
Diking district is doing a master plan.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing. I may be totally in left field, you know, screaming fire in the theater right here. Because if they show a master plan that shows, yeah, they pump every drop of water that we give them, then I will clearly apologize to you. I just have zero confidence that that's happening right now. Poke, 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 poke.
But wasn't that the whole drama though when Walmart was coming in, was who was gonna be responsible for that intersection that floods all the time, right? So then Walmart was supposed to, I think they finally, that council and Walmart came to an agreement where Walmart would take care of pumping that water away, because there used to be a creek right there.
And it's behind, it's still there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just goes back behind the high school and through the
Right.
poor property and into the farmer's fields.
But I think they need to do a better job of getting that dug out and where the water would go.
That's my opinion as well. And the problem is when I talk to Tracy, Tracy's like, no, they're awesome. When we ask them for any help, they're Johnny on the spot. They give us supplies. They help us all the time. And my problem is like, yeah, your accountant takes you to lunch and buys you lunch as they steal from your bank account to fund other projects. I don't know if that's a problem. And like I said, I might be shouting fire in the theater here. I'm just worried that the city's got to do a better job looking out for itself. So it scares the crap out of me.
But is that something that you can, you as your, you two, I guess, as department heads, can you sit down with whoever's in charge of the diking district and come to a collaborative agreement, maybe have an MOU, have something to where you guys can, because you're right, people are paying the diking district to do we don't know what, but then the city taxpayers are paying for public works to do things.
Double taxation, basically.
Right.
Double dip and
You gonna go to the Dyken district?
So I don't. This is part of what might negatively shade my opinion, and that is, as I continue to poke the bear with these letters and these issues, the non-response, the city and the county have resolutions for growth management that were passed in 2002, I think it was. And that resolution basically says that in planning-related issues, the county has the supervisory and the veto power for city negotiations and discussions. And the county has an advisory role for us. So, for example, we were talking about this comp plan request for the chainsaw shop north of town. And they are in our comprehensive plan as commercial, and they requested to go to industrial. And I wrote a letter to them saying, you can't go to industrial because we don't want industrial next to the school and the residences. Our plan designation is commercial. And we sent them a letter, and it may end up be, or it turned out to be, that it's going to be industrial whether we wanted it or not. Because yes, they solicit our input, but they are under no obligation to honor our response. They only have to seek our input, whereas we are obligated to do what they want. So when we went through this comp plan discussion about expanding into the bottoms, we wanted to expand our growth area so that we could plan for growth south of the city. And their answer was, no, you cannot do that. So consequently, the council decided not to do any urban growth area expansion. Partly because the county torpedoed the process, and partly because they felt, they had legitimate reasons that we needed to gather more data on exit 22. We needed to look at the utilities in the industrial district. So there were a lot of reasons why it might have been premature, but we're now back with the exact same question, and that is, how do I plan for the bottoms? Do I plan for the entire thing? Do I plan for just part of it? Do I plan for an extra 200 acres? We'll never know because we never get to participate in that planning process to decide how much land we're going to need, because the county's not interested in talking about that. They'll talk to Aho about 600 homes, but they won't talk to us.
Is that the county commissioners?
Not necessarily. I don't know, because I poke the bear. I don't know whether I'm poking them in the arm or the shoulder or the back or the butt or the thigh. I just continue to poke. This kind of goes into that black box. Staff rolls their eyes and they say, "Yeah, we got it. We'll consider it."
How do we find out who?
So I think one of the things that Travis has done over the last few months is that we've gotten the County Planning Commission on board, because they were out of the loop and didn't understand what was happening. I think part of the issue too was the county staff at the planning department. They've been not as productive.
Well, yeah, and part of it is I don't know if they are bringing this stuff up the chain of the ladder, and their answer is, yeah, we're not interested in taking care of that right now. So so I might be.
I had a meeting with Dennis Weber as well, probably about a month ago. We started reaching out and starting to have these conversations. I think we can do something. Enough's enough. So we're trying to pull everybody to the table now, at least somebody that would have a voice that would say, okay, we've got a legitimate concern, let's have a talk, instead of just sending letters and complaining all the time. Yeah. So we're working on it. We're trying to get the right people at the table. And I think Dennis is pretty open to the conversation and believes that there is a problem. And then I think just the other day there was another meeting had to do with flooding. Right?
Yeah. They're dealing with Cowlitz County sediment issues.
Sediment issues.
Cowlitz River.
Yeah. So that's, and they're working with Corps of Engineers and all that stuff, and they're seeing it now. It's starting to, he said, hit the Columbia River. The sediment is. Yeah. They used to dredge it, and now they're starting, and they haven't been doing that. So now they're starting to see flooding in some of the neighborhoods up in Kelso.
Right.
Well,
because
so they are dredging the Columbia.
Yes. Not the river though.
Yes. The issue is Mount St. Helens after Mount St. Helens, because there was so much material moved, they built a bunch of flooding infrastructure to control the erosion of that area. So they built 50-year erosion control structures. Well, it's been 50 years. It's like 48 years. And so now all that infrastructure is filled. So what they're starting to see is now the water is starting to go through work its way through those meandering streams and river beds. And all these people have built homes over the last 50 years along the banks. And since they're starting to, the mouse is finally getting through the snake, and pretty soon that mouse is going to drop out of the back of the snake into the Columbia River, and if the Columbia River starts getting filled at an accelerated rate, we're going to start seeing more flooding. So all of these issues that I didn't even know were on my radar, that might be part of the reason why the county never pays any attention to us when we're poking the bear, because they're in the middle of a fight, and the fact that we're poking them in the thigh doesn't matter, because they're busy wrestling with big issues.
So one of the things I'm thinking though is, how, follow my thought process here. So Cowlitz County gets our money, right? I have to pay a ton of money to Cowlitz County every year for all kinds of things. And so, like for instance, there's a house for sale over by the food bank. $750,000.
Yeah.
And that house has been there my whole life, okay? It ain't that fancy.
You mean Manuel's house?
$750,000. I'm not kidding you. Like, somebody's on the pipe. But anyway, so we, Woodland, all pay into Cowlitz County, right? Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So when you get your bill, you get a breakout of where that money goes. So yeah, so
Right.
you pay into the library, you pay into the cemetery district, you pay into the county road funds.
Yes. So we pay into all of this stuff. Now multiply that by all the people in Woodland, all Woodlanders who live in Cowlitz County. And so we kick up a whole mess of money, right? And so if people are valuing homes around here at almost $1 million, so then that means your property taxes are gonna go up, which means the county's gonna get more and more money. Woodland never gets diddly squat, right? So my thought process is what I saw from the planning commission, county planning meeting where they were discussing the housing up by the golf course, right? The amount of Woodlanders who turned out and spoke in that meeting, I mean, that meeting went on for forever because of that. What my thought process is, if we knew who to light up, Woodlanders would turn out for that. Because I think I'm not the only person who lives here who wonders what exactly goes on with my money that you get. That Longview and Kelso, it's always, well, we're having these issues. Yeah, and so do we. So instead of being our own separate entity that has to pay allegiance to the county, and then we're expected to deal with all the ramifications of everything with little to no input, and apparently they don't even disseminate information amongst themselves so that people are aware of what goes on here. Because again, we are the armpit of two counties, so Cowlitz and Clark, neither really seems to care about us. But my thought process is if you could figure out that, who we need to approach, Woodlanders, I know, would turn out to voice their concerns and demand a return on their money, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. You are saying out loud some of the frustrations that I constantly feel, because the structural resolution that we have with the county says we have a path to bring complaints to the county, but they're not obligated to honor our concerns. That's really kind of where your relationship with Arn, because he's the one that represents us, and the mayor is constantly trying to do what he can to help Arn understand what we're up against and working with the other elected officials. But ultimately, the question is, do they represent upriver residents, or do they represent the city residents? The answer is both, but he can only do so much with the time that he's given. So I can't really wrestle with that, because the resolution says, yeah, I can poke the bear all I want, but and you get to the ultimate problem that I have, and that is there's so much stuff to work on. I'd love to fix the code. I'd love to even do update our sign ordinance, but I'm busy dealing with applicants who want to go to court about whether or not they can put 400 units in the commercial zone, and I have so many other things to fix that, plus I'm doing public records requests and helping the ladies out front and, attending all of this stuff as best I can. So yeah, what you're here today is to talk about, what's most important to you. And you want me to tell the code fixes can wait? Let's concentrate on poking the bear and getting a master plan for the bottoms. But that doesn't address that issue, because that's not in the bottoms. I'm constantly juggling this stuff. And my joke with Tracy is, she's the gas, she gets everything done. I am the brake. I try and do my best to, slow us down and keep us on track and try and keep us in control.
In compliance.
Yes.
I
So
just go.
You're more like a parachute, not a brake.
Yes.
You're not
Yeah.
trying to stop
Yes.
her, just slow her down.
I think we
Okay.
have to work on some of the codes for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we're gonna talk about that when we get down to later on in the meeting this
Okay.
afternoon.
And then I think the very last slide, Carla, is, this is the example of the map.
Things. So for you guys, this is not on your radar, but for me, this is the kind of stupid little sliver that's in my thumb that I could just never get rid of.
But
So
you do
if
use
you're
your
familiar
thumb.
with McCracken up here, here's the school. This is the Quail Meadows. So this represents the county line and the city limits, or the urban growth boundary. City limits, but the city limits were drawn based when this was annexed. This is where the river was. And since then, the river has shifted this direction. And so all of this land has now been created. It's not in the city limits. We don't have any direction for how we're going to govern this. So they're trying to subdivide this little piece of property here, and their ownership goes down to the edge of the river. So I literally have to tell them, okay, well, I will subdivide this part of the property, but this part here, that's actually in Cowlitz County, so you need to go get Cowlitz County permits because it's not in the city.
Is
Cowlitz
that
County-
Connie's, used to be Connie's property? Is
Well, it used to be the river, so it was never there. So the county doesn't have any zoning for this property either because they consider it part of the city. And it's like this no man's land that I don't know what to do with.
So how do we how do we annex that? How do we make that part of Woodland city limits? Because
So what I
it's a
recommend
natural
to them
thing.
is that they request annexation to bring that into the city. But really what we should do is we should fix it because out in front of Meshan's property, there's additional land, and so how is Meshan going to handle that?
Right.
And is the county taxing it as residential land, or that you can recognize that it's land and should be taxed? These are the kind of stupid sliver stuff that just never goes away, and I would love to fix it, especially now that they're requesting an application. What I'd like to do is maybe give authorization to just fix this all the way down to the airport and bring everything, if it's solid land in the city, it's included in the city map. But I have to change the map, which means we have to take the county to accept our map amendments and commerce. What's that? So that's in our urban growth boundary. So the urban growth boundary is actually this purple line here. And one of the possibilities is we could just accept out to the center line of the river because really we covered in our shoreline program, we just don't have the regulatory authority. This sliver here is actually Cowlitz County. How dumb is that? We can't rely on them for anything else. Why are we putting them in a position where the applicant needs to get a county permit at the same time we're getting a city permit? It's just like some of these decisions that we made in the past because we didn't think about it. We could fix it now, but
How important is fixing the map compared to all the other stuff that you want me to juggle, right? So that's it.
Okay. Well, he went longer than.
Yes, I did. I went.
How much time? Give me a guess.
I say 43 minutes.
Hour and 10.
Hour and 5.
Really?
You took up all of Gina's time.
5 minutes.
And he only had how many slides?
So I was supposed to go last because they didn't want me to take the first 2 hours. They wanted me to take the last half hour.
Tracy, he talks slower than you do.
Yeah, well, you
All
guys,
right.
you guys need to speed up those hearing aid listening. That's what I say.
Let's take lunch, grab some stuff, and then we'll come back and we'll start with Gina.
Okay.
So now you took
I
up
gotta
Pete
tell you,
and Gina's time.
Sorry.
Good job.
Is that little piece of land, is that something you could put your new intern kid on? Because that seems like a really interesting thing for him to take on.
It's an easy fix. It's just
You sit there.
No, it's a tough spot to
Do you
be in.
secretly sleep
I
when you
can
don't know it?
So,
With your eyes open?
but
He has tattooed eyelids.
Yeah, he
It
does.
looks like his eyes are open.
so it's like one of those things where I'm like there's something I said in high school that I still think about. And I'm like, next time I see him,